coughing up a lung.
Yeah.
All right. Casey's coughing up a lung, and that's our cue to start. So, everyone, welcome to Masculine Geek number 120. This is the all things alcohol, liquor, and wine, debauchery, and in vino veritas, as they say. We're all enjoying cigars or drinks. We're all here. This is almost a full panel.
Hollywood Squares.
Pretty much.
The Brady,
the Paul Lynn.
The Brady bunch over here.
The great Brady bunch of debauchery.
What was that, Rob?
TJ is Alice.
No, that we're missing Alice. That would be Aaron. Remember? We're missing Alice. It kind of fit very nicely too. All right, so as usual, this is very freewheeling and flying by the seat of our pants. I mean, obviously, we're talking about what we're smoking, what we're drinking, and everything therein. So let's go around the panel. Everyone knows who I am. So without further ado, let's start off with Mr. Rob. Rob, who are you? What are you smoking, and what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Bud Light and I'm smoking a PDR 1878 Kappa Sun Grown. That's what I'm smoking.
All right, is it going well with your beer?
Of course.
I'm just checking.
All of my cigars go great with beer.
Okay. So you've planned it that way, basically. Yeah.
All I ever care about is it smooth and can I get a buzz?
That's true. That's very true. We have one more person here. Who is this? And Mr. Who is in the red cap? Who is that?
This one.
Yeah, red cap.
All right. Hi, I'm Red, and tonight I'm drinking a kind of an old rendition of the Manhattan. So what we got here is we've got some simple bourbon. I don't like to use the expensive stuff. So just wild turkey. We've got some sweet vermouth and a few dashes of just regular bitters. Nice simple drink. Nice and smooth.
Nice.
So what you're saying is you like rot gut.
Sure.
That's okay.
Love it.
Yeah. Nice.
Mr. Bud Light drinker.
Hey, what can I say?
There you go. That's the good stuff. That is Satan's urine. And let's drop down one level to the Mr. Illimitable Chest Rockwell. Chest, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Concannon Vineyards Petite Syrah 2012.
Okay.
It's a proprietary grape that this company basically had on their Syrah lands out in the scrub, and they found that it grew smaller berries and was a little bit hardier in that crappy area where they grow grapes in California, and they ended up making it a kind of a cottage industry of its own little grape. And they're the largest producer of that particular varietal, and it's pretty good stuff for the $18 to $23 a bottle range. It's some of the better red you can drink in America.
Nice, I like it. Is it light, medium, full bodied? How's it drinking for you?
It drinks like an old vine Syrah, so it's pretty stout, but it's one note.
How's it drinking for you?
It drinks like an old vine Syrah, so it's pretty stout, but
somebody's
got the YouTube.
Somebody running YouTube. There you go.
All right.
Listening to ourselves as we go.
Yeah, I know, that's very strange.
Right.
But yeah, it's not as complex as a cab, but it beats the hell out of a Merlot. I guess that's the way I would describe it.
That's what I'm drinking now is a Cabernet Franc.
Oh yeah. South American, or where is it from?
Yeah, this is Argentinian, which I'm really digging. I really like Argentinian and Chilean Malbecs as well, just because of that rich soil coming down off the Andes.
Yeah, those are like your minor blending wines that they turned into full-fledged bottles, and those are good. I like them both.
Yeah, this one is very light. It's mild acidity, and the alcohol is not overwhelming anything to do with the fruit or the flavor, so it's really good.
Did he freeze?
Certainly looks that way.
Yeah, I think Vince is having his nightly freeze up.
Yes.
Certainly looks that way.
Yeah, I think Vince is having his nightly freeze up.
I'm back.
That Alabama Wi-Fi.
Son of a bitch.
Vince is having his nightly.
All right, who's live?
Somebody needs to get out of YouTube.
Yeah, it's not me. All right, is that you? Is that you, Luke?
Somebody needs to get out of YouTube.
Who has YouTube open?
Not me.
Is that you, Luke?
No, not me. The only thing I'm running is here.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Very strange.
It's we have not only are we drinking alcohol, but it's haunted. This is the haunted episode.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Indeed.
The spirits of the booze are haunting us.
Literally. TJ, how about yourself? You're smoking your pipe, and you're also drinking something. So what do you got going on over there?
So this is a Peterson pipe. I got this from the, is it Japan Tobacco or Japan Pipes or something like that on the Twittersphere?
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
All right, I'll look around. Tobacco Pipes Japan. So you can find them. Your people are smart. You can figure it out. What I'm drinking right now is the only peated single malt Irish whiskey.
Nice.
From Connemara.
Oh, okay.
I've got a couple other things that I can show off that I've accumulated over the years, but I've also consumed it. So, I mean, if it pleases the crown, but we can do that after introductions.
Of course, yeah. Robert, you're next.
Good evening. I'm Robert Kuzland. I'm not smoking anything this evening, but I am drinking something from Starlight Distilleries, which is local to Indiana, down south toward Louisville. Tonight, I am drinking their blackberry whiskey. The blackberries are grown there on the property and added during the process of making the whiskey. It's an 84 proof. Really one of the first flavored whiskeys I've tried, because most are artificially flavored. And to be honest with you, the only reason I'm trying this is because lately I've been hearing a lot of positive stuff about Crown Royal's Peach, which has been compared to iced tea. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try something, but if I'm going to try it, I want it to not necessarily be something that's completely artificially flavored. Overall, drinking pretty well, but I do think that the blackberry overpowers it just a bit, and you can't really appreciate the natural flavors of the whiskey. Starlight Distilleries is the manufacturer of my favorite bottle of bourbon, which is the Carl T. Huber's, which I usually drink. I tend to prefer bourbons over whiskey or scotch, just because there's something about even the bourbon is 92 proof, whereas the whiskey's only 84. But the bourbon is so much smoother, I think, and I don't know if it's because of the high content of corn in the distillation process that does that or not. Although I am going to be interested in hearing more about that peat whiskey that you're drinking, TJ, because I know that a lot of Irish whiskeys don't use that, but they're one of the brands that is kind of like their hallmark calling card. So so after introductions, looking forward to hearing more about that and how it drinks. So, but that's what I'm having. So cheers, gentlemen, in the words of the poet laureate Homer Simpson, to alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. Cheers.
Blonde.
Indeed. Let's drop down one other further level and get that guy with the shades on who's puffing away at his cigar. Who is that?
Muted.
It's muted.
You're muted.
And he's muted.
Apparently, he's already 2 sheets to the wind.
Yeah. So I'm nobody of consequence.
That's true.
I'm drinking this Clyde Mays Alabama bourbon. It's some of his whiskeys are based on. He was an actual bootlegger that lived not far down the road here, and they've come up with a whole company now that puts out a few different whiskeys based on his recipe. I don't know that this is exactly. I don't think he made bourbon necessarily. He just made whatever he could. But it's pretty good. It's they're working on building a local distillery here. Right now, I think they're making it in Kentucky, but I think they're going to start making it down here whenever that building's finished. And it's a good mid shelf kind of Tuesday, Wednesday night drinker. It's smooth. It's it's got a good flavor. It's not very fruity. It's a little bit more on the oaky side, I guess. And I'm smoking a Black House cigar from Houston, Texas.
Nice. Let's shift over one more. Mr. Howell, how about yourself?
I'm KJ Howell. Well, tonight I'm drinking an Evan Williams single barrel, an 8-year single barrel. First time I've tried it. So far, it's not bad. I've had better, but it's not bad. Probably a mid-shelf, maybe. But it tastes more like Jim Beam than an Evan Williams ordinarily. Maybe it'll grow on me, or maybe I'll switch over to the Taylor back there.
I know. I see your shelf there with your listings. That's pretty cool. All right, let's get Luke back in here. He keeps cutting in and out. All right, Luke, you with us?
Yeah, I think so.
There you go. You're in and out.
Yeah, not sure what the issue is, but
Yeah, you keep dropping out like every well, actually less than that, every 2 or 3 minutes.
yeah, I apologize for that.
Nah, no worries. So what are you smoking and what are you drinking?
So drinking Henry McKenna, 10-year bottle and bond, 100 proof, which is pretty good. Not my favorite, but it's definitely up there on the list. Really enjoying that. And then I'm smoking the Leaf by Oscar.
Oh, okay.
This is the Sumatra, which is my first time smoking the Sumatra. However, their cigars, in my opinion, are some of the most well-made cigars on the market. And I'm surprised they're not bigger than what they are. But I don't think that Jim wants them to be. I think this is. I think he likes having his own little corner of the market, so to speak. So, really interesting cigar, though. I really enjoy their line. They don't put them in cellophane. They wrap them in a separate cigar leaf.
Oh, I like when they do that.
Yeah, so it's just this really interesting niche thing. Some people thought it was a gimmick at the beginning, and I think it does a lot of good for them.
Yeah.
And I've actually come across a guy who he thought this whole thing was the cigar, and so chopped the end off and lit it up.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah. And he was only 22 years old and never really smoked cigars.
Yeah. He found that real quick what was going on there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty funny. So what's All right, well, I'll just quickly go back to this. TJ, this is one of the last Drew Estate Tobacco Specials, the Maduro.
Yeah.
That you had suggested. Now I know why you like this. This is very much like, I was mentioning this earlier, this is very much like the Drew Estate Latte, which is a Connecticut wrapper. This is the Maduro wrapper. It's a little stronger, but it's slightly sweet. There are notes of caramel and dark chocolate. Now I know why you like it.
Yeah, man, I would go to this local place. It's one of the only places that you can go buy cigars and also smoke them on the same premise. And every time I ordered those and smoked them, I had random people just come up to me saying, "What is that?" Because they love the smell.
Oh, the aroma is amazing.
At one time I was smoking and there was like a bunch of old women across from me, and they all just turned and looked at me, and I was afraid they were going to complain about the smell. But then they said they started gesturing like they loved the aroma or something like that. So I was like, I just thought, wow, it's a little pricey. It's $14, at least where I get them. It's $14 a pop, so I don't get very often. But I've never really been traditionally a big cigar guy. I always feel like if I smoke too much of it, I get sick. And also, if I'm drinking alcohol, I don't touch cigars usually because you accidentally inhale some of that smoke, and then you feel sick for the rest of the evening. But that's just me. It's like you smoke the cigar first, and then I'll go have my bourbon or something like that. It was a good cigar, but hopefully there'll be some left for next week, right?
Well, I this is the last one of the one pack. I was like, fuck it. So I ordered. I went and ordered us another pack and
Cool.
some diesel whiskey, sherry cask whiskey row.
Oh,
they're really good.
And for people who are wondering why Vince is ordering all this stuff, it's because in my state, our state attorney general banned the.
Your state sucks.
Yeah, my state is a bunch of. But we won't even go there. But I can't order any tobacco from anywhere, whether it's in the state or out of the state. I can't order it through the mail. They do not allow any shipping of any tobacco products of any kind whatsoever. I miraculously at one point got this.
Oh,
I think they accidentally shipped it to me, not realizing that it was to Washington. But
that's awesome.
So I was able to buy this, and when I went to order more of it, they go, "Oh, we don't ship to Washington." And I looked through my orders. It was like, wait a minute, you guys shipped this to me a year ago.
My God, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
some newbie in the warehouse.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, this cigar, because it does have notes of caramel and dark chocolate. You know, if you go to a wine tasting, sometimes they'll have, especially old rustic wine places up in the New York wine area. You're going into a barn with a barn door on top of two sawhorses, and they lay out chocolate and some wine glasses for you, and you taste the wine. It's kind of cool. So this is chocolate. I'm going to take a puff.
Your neighbor's going to come out and say, "What's that awesome smell?"
I know, right? And then I'm going to drink the red wine.
Red wine.
One thing that I find that helps. Is I like to keep the smoke in my mouth just a little bit, maybe let a little bit out, but keep it in and then sip at the same time. And
how they
kind of play together.
Let me try that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. You can see the smoke still curling around the glass.
Doing the same thing here.
That's awesome. Yeah, there you go. That's nice. That's holding the smoke very well. I like it. It's tasty. Cool. Thanks for the recommendation. I didn't think I even would not have thought to do that.
So are you guys big sticklers on pairing up your cigars to match what you're drinking, or are you you guys can go around the horn on that? Most people I know at least like something that's somewhat complementary, but aren't necessarily big sticklers. But I do know some that are, very almost to the point of obsessive about it, about making sure that the pairing is perfect.
Well, I'll start first. Like this is a very light-bodied wine, medium acidity, low alcohol. This is good for the Maduro. Maduro is heavier, and typically for myself, I have to have a Maduro after a meal because it's heavy, it's rich. So I think if I had something that was a little more full-bodied along with the Maduro, that may be kind of clashing with each other. But right now, because this is slightly sweet, there's not much sweetness. It's pretty dry. It's working out well, and that wasn't really by design. It just wound up being that way.
Right.
So, but if I'm having I don't know. It depends on what I'm eating too. What I pair it with. I pair it with. And we have Mr. Bacon joining us as well. Hang on, Bacon. We'll get to you in a moment. We're answering one of Robert's questions. So, like I said,
yeah, sure. I'll mute myself. Give me a sec.
Cool. Thank you. But for the most part, it's usually a happy coincidence. My drinking and my cigar pairings. But for unless I say if it's a Maduro, then I definitely want to make sure I'm drinking something light.
Okay.
For myself, it could be different for other people, but yeah.
Anyone else?
Sure, I'll hop in on that one. It's for me myself. I actively seek to complement what I'm drinking and what I'm smoking, because for me it's just part of it. However, sometimes the contrast is the most beautiful thing. You know, a good Connecticut cigar with a good dark flavored whiskey. Let's say bourbon, Old Forester 1920 has a really nice chocolate note to it. And if you're smoking a wonderful light creamy Connecticut cigar, sometimes that can really play back and forth nicely. However, there are times where, you know, to quote Bob Ross, you have the happy accident. You know, you're trying something new. There's a guy. I'm part of a cigar club in Ohio, and there's a gentleman who swears up and down, left, right, and otherwise, fruit punch with a cigar.
No shit.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. Connecticut, Maduro, Habano, he don't care. And I would never have thought to try that, but he swears by it, and I still haven't tried it, but it's on the back of my list somewhere.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Anyone else on Robert's question? Because that's a good question.
I've always associated cigar smoking for the most part with a scotch or something that I'm like, but that's just my personal preference, is something that I can do a mild sipping whiskey or a scotch, something that I'm not really going to be, something like this actually would probably be good, just a little bit of it. But I'm also, scotch for me is such the smoky peat flavors aroma is so strong. I can only do a small amount of it. The scotch is not something I'm going to drink half a bottle of in a night with buddies like we can do with Jameson or something like that.
Right.
And then wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and still feel good.
Gotcha.
So, but I'm also not a big cigar aficionado, so that might be different. It's like I used to not be big into a lot of wines and beers, but now that, you know, for me, depending on the weather, there's certain beers that I'll drink and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. Maybe I might expand my repertoire when it comes to cigars, and that might change.
Well, most of the people I know that really like and appreciate cigars tend to pair them with some type of whiskey, whether it's a scotch or a bourbon or, you know, an Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey, whatever. That seems to be the go-to pairing. Vince is one of the only guys I know on any kind of level that pairs his cigars with wines.
Yep.
So, you know, it's interesting to hear how the difference as far as some people wanting things to complement each other or contrast each other. So I don't smoke a lot and haven't since I got out of the service, but I do like having a nice cigar, but I'm not anywhere close to being an expert on pairing them up. But that's one of those things that it's always nice to get more intel on, especially when you go to look. And I usually try to trust those sort of things to people with actual experience with various types of cigars, because I know there's a lot of difference both in stuff that's cigars that are grown here in the United States versus those grown in the Dominican or wherever. And there's a lot of there seems to be a lot of variety as far as how certain things smoke, both the wrapper as well as the actual cigar tobacco itself,
the filler.
The filler. And so but I also know some of that is we're going to hype this because we want the at a certain level the difference is more preference than actual science, which I know is something that Chesty's talked about with beer, for example. So
I'll jump in and say that I don't make any conscious attempt to pair anything with anything else. I drink the whiskey I like and the cigar I feel like smoking that night, and whatever happens. So I'm a total unsophisticated anarchist when it comes to that.
You we have that in common.
Peasant.
Cheers.
There you go. All right, so there we go. We have bacon down the bottom above the Masculine Geeked Out Life. No, we just lost somebody.
In more ways than one.
That's right.
I actually am in the field. TJ's favorite city. I'll let him guess which one.
You're muted, TJ.
I'm going to work and I've got big things to do.
Seattle.
Oh yeah. So appropriately, this being by the fireside, who knows? You might actually see a fire break out in the background. So there you go. There's your extra show material. But I figured
you're working, are you working on your way home, or on your way home?
Oh, I've touched down. I usually work the nights here, which is how I got a lot of those photos and stuff to begin with.
Gotcha.
I'm good as long as you guys are going now. Hell, I don't think it's busy tonight anyways. But since it would be sacrilege to not have anything to drink aside from water, which is very important if you're going to be imbibing in the good or even halfway good stuff. Y'all recognize this? Let's see if I can get it out of the light there.
Evan Williams.
Just a regular old black label. I actually happened to pick this up at a local Rite Aid. It was on sale. And in fact, it actually happens to be my house bourbon. I mean, I get that because you can get that by the handle here. As TJ would know, Washington State happens to be the worst place. It's the worst state in the country as far as liquor taxes goes.
Yep.
Really?
Highest excise tax, liquor excise tax in the country. So basically, when you buy a bottle, for the most part, you're paying 40% tax on it.
Holy shit.
Now, is that like an old school religious thing?
No, it's
for the
what
state.
Happened is from a carryover, pardon the train, but carryover from Prohibition, the state ran if you wanted to buy liquor, you had to buy it through the state. So there was no. I remember the first time I went to California to a grocery store and saw liquor in the grocery store, and it was the weirdest thing because the only place that you could buy liquor for decades was at a government-run liquor store. Well, back in 2012, voters approved an initiative that allowed liquor to be sold privately. What the government did is they were determined to keep their cut of the revenue, so they just jacked up the excise taxes and all this other kind of stuff. So essentially, the price remained the same because of the taxes. So we're not paying anything unless you go to Costco and buy it in bulk. You're not paying any less for liquor than when the government was selling it. You can just buy it now at a grocery store instead of having to go to a government-run store. So, little tidbit.
Yeah, as far as California, actually, that's where I'm from Inglewood specifically. Anywhere there. I mean, for as long as I can remember, you can just get this stuff right off the shelf. I mean, it's just, the taxes, it still rivals, King County, Pierce County, all that stuff, 10%, 11%, what have you. but I mean, it was just that. I still remember I actually had visited Washington State back in 2008. And yeah, back then, TJ, I do remember, I think we went to go get a bottle of wine or something. And yeah, it was at ABC. It was a state-run liquor store. I thought, oh, that's kind of odd. Like, you can only go here to get it? Like, yeah. But by the time I moved up here, yeah, I had heard about that. They had done away with it. But no, we're just going to add, like this tax, and then there's a per liter tax and all this other stuff. So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to be getting, if you're going to drink with them, it helps to get, your bang for your buck. So, I mean, that's why I go with Evelyn's. And,
right.
It might be something you can get. I call it the best bottom shelf you can get, because even some bartenders I've seen in reviews, like it's actually at least up there with the mid-grade stuff for not a whole lot. And Black Label, I think it comes in at 86 proof, if I remember correctly. So
you ought to try this one, the Evan Williams bottled in bond.
Yeah, it's I used to drink quite a bit of it when I was on more of a budget, because I just couldn't afford some of the top. I have some buddies who buy the top shelf. Gosh, how many trains can you go buy in one day? They buy the top shelf stuff, and it's really good. So one guy was telling me how to like filter out the remaining impurities in whiskey through a filter or something like that. I don't know if that was necessary for Evan Williams. I just know that there's some bargain basement liquors that I just can't drink anymore. There's just too much impurities.
The
bottled in bond in Evan Williams is real good, because you know what you're getting, and if somebody comes over to your house and pours it in a Coke, you don't cry.
Yeah, right. That's true.
My brother came in and poured Blanton's into a Coke one time, and I had the Blanton's when he comes around.
Yeah,
Blanton's is on my list.
I gotta show a little bottle. This is in honor of Aaron Clary. A small bottle.
It looks like fucking maple syrup.
Yeah. It's like did you get that at Cracker Barrel or?
I know I got it at the liquor store, but I was like,
that's how you do it the right way. There's a big old bottle.
Yeah, I usually take Kraken when I head out to Necronomicon and the H.P. Lovecraft convention in Providence.
Actually, I'll just throw out since so I actually have a couple of other ones. This one, I went to the Beef Eaters Distillery in London, so I got a little bottle from there.
Oh, cool.
So, and then I also went to the distillery, Jameson's Distillery, and got a bottle of their Black Barrel.
Oh, good.
So,
all right.
Is that for a special occasion?
Yeah, I figured it's going to be for a special occasion of some kind. I have no idea what it is, but
Hey, since we've got so many Ohio guys on right now, I'd gotten this for Christmas from a Marine buddy of mine. It's from Columbus, Middle West Spirits Straight Rye Whiskey. Any of you Ohio guys familiar with this?
I am not.
Okay.
I'll have to check that out. You'll have to send me something later. Because
right.
I'm always interested in local. Always support the local.
Well, I had been sharing my local bourbon with him. So the Hubers that I like from Starlight Distilleries is about $35-$40. So I mean it's
not bad.
Yeah, it's nowhere near top shelf price wise, but as far as flavor, it is one of the smoothest bourbons I've ever drank. It is good straight in a glass, and it is good over ice. Actually, I think it's a little better over ice, but I tend to like chilled drinks. So but it is super, super smooth, and you can just, you and a buddy can sit down with that and sit there and talk, and the bottle will be gone before you know it, and you'll have enjoyed every moment of drinking it, which to me, I think that's the whole purpose of doing it. The idea of, drinking Old Milwaukee to get smashed, whatever allure it may have had at any point in my life probably left me while I was still a teenager. So, and I find that the older I get, the more I actually prefer, if I'm going to drink, to not drink beer, even though I do like stouts and porters. I would rather, have a glass of bourbon, if I'm going to have a drink, or if I'm having a meal, obviously I would like to have a glass of wine with the meal, although I'm, no connoisseur when it comes to wine, by any means, but, afterwards I like to have a drink, and usually it's bourbon on the rocks, although I do appreciate a good old fashioned or Manhattan or some of the old classic cocktails, which have had kind of a renaissance, thanks to Madman, I think, in no small part. Yeah. And I'd kind of like to see that continue, because there's a certain art to making a good drink, and there's something to be said about appreciating it. I think when we lost our clubs and our fraternities and our gathering places, I think that was probably more detrimental to society than society even realizes.
Right.
Yeah. We have plans for that. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, but I'm not. I wasn't trying to hint at anything. I know.
It came up. It comes up
since,
several times surreptitiously, like apropos to nothing. So I'm going to be like, well, we're going to take care of that. So don't worry.
Well, that's kind of one of the nice things about this program, especially on, whether it's the Wednesdays that the gaming's going on or the Wednesdays that are just the fireside chats. I think some of the stuff that we touch on, or you guys touch on, or, in various combinations are some important things that need to be discussed from time to time. If for no other reason than just, to make life a little bit more pleasurable, which, if, you get a life sentence, whether it's 50 years, 60 years, 80 years, 100 years, you might as well enjoy the time you serve,
Correct. Which is very much so with the alcohol you drink. It lubricates the way.
By the way, that's a good reason to sign up for the masculinegeek.live live thing. I mean, there's the forums and stuff, but yeah, like just having those kinds of places where you can just chat and not really worried about somebody overhearing you. You don't get those they're an ever dwindling supply. And since since it was brought up, I do think, this is something I'm glad I learned early on. It really does depend how you drinking and what you drink for. I've done, and I'm pretty sure other people have done this or too. You drink it just to get smashed or whatever, or you see it as a competition. Drinking really should not be a competition. It's something that's there for you to enjoy. Whether it's beer, whether it's wine, or whether it's spirits, or a smorgasbord of all three. And for a lot of people, I think this is as Luke was alluding to. You start appreciating the stuff that's better. Okay, you could just go get a 12-pack of Still Reserves and a plastic handle of a Scotch. By the way, don't ever do that. Ask me how I know that. It's a very painful memory.
I'm gonna say that's the personal one right there.
Oh, very.
Well, there's a. Oh, sorry.
Well,
how dare you interrupt somebody?
Well, I'll just feel something. I'd like to get you guys feedback. I've said it before. You don't lose money spending it on quality. now. Okay, fine. I've got this bottle of Evan. I still think it's decent for what it is. But let's say I move up the step, to like Evan Williams single barrel or Basil Hayes, which I actually happen to really like, or I don't know, what's a good one? Like Blanton's or something like that. That's something you would take, but you would for me personally, I'll have like a smaller glass or something else where I'm just actually taking it in. I'm just sipping it or whatever, and you actually do you still get the intoxicating effect, but it's a much different, much more relaxed. You don't need nearly as much as if you were pounding shots at the bar. So even if you spent a pretty penny and actually learned to take your time and drink it and maybe smoke with your cigars, as a pairing, as it was brought up earlier. I mean, even then, that price likely will even out. You might even spend even less. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. So, Chess, I'm curious, and I wanted to ask you. It was on the list of things to ask you. So you create your own beer, brew your own beer, and you also create and ferment your own wine. Are you working on anything at the moment?
I'm working on a couple different recipes for beers. I do want to do a shandy this year. The sad handy summer shandy. In honor of the stretch of wasteland known as I-80 that I drove last summer. Oh my Lord! You get into Iowa and through Nebraska, through Wyoming, and it's it's desolate with.
Sounds scenic.
Yeah, it's not scenic. I mean, you could see from one state to the other. It's that flat. But
not so bad when you get to Utah and Wyoming and such.
No,
but, man, Iowa and Nebraska.
Wyoming though reminds me of like hell with fewer people. To be honest, there was nothing there, nothing to look at all on the highway. But yeah, just truck stops and massage parlors. So that's the whole.
That's a
Is
scene.
there any difference between those on the highways? Just asking for a friend.
I doubt it. I think they're probably populated by the same people who are, brought over as slave labor from Vietnam and Laos and all those other poor countries. But if you're going to get trafficked, I wouldn't want to get trafficked to Nebraska and work at an I-80 truck stop. that's
right.
All I know. But so I'm working on recipes right now for a shandy. I'm also looking at I really like certain types of Dutch beers and also Belgian lambics. So I'm looking to maybe do either a cherry lambic or maybe just a dry lambic, which is called a gueuze, and they're an acquired taste about as weird as the name. Very high alcohol, but low on hops. So it's incredibly forward with the flavors of whatever malt you use, and then the wild yeasts that kind of get into it. So but they're an acquired taste. So depending on what wild yeast you get anywhere from some pleasant fruit notes to like wet sock character. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
It boils down a lot to cleanliness again.
Unless you like wet sock, that's really not good.
Yeah. Yep.
Now,
And like
shame.
and as far as wine's concerned right now, I'm working on a dry mead right now. I've got a guy who's supplying me with honey, and he gets most of his honey from a field that has a lot of daffodils. So I'm kind of interested in what that particular flower is going to bring to the overall flavor, and I think it'll go good as a dry wine as opposed to a sweet mead. So I'm going to use champagne yeast on that and get it all the way up to around 14.5% and bottle it the same way as a champagne. So I'll cage it, use a heavy cork. Riddle it. Put it on its side, spin it so all the sediment goes to the bottom, and that's going to be.
Do you have a riddling rack?
No, but it's really not that necessary. I mean, you can use a regular wine rack just so long as you remember to put it in essentially in the opposite direction.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
And make sure that they don't fall out when you move them halfway, or you're going to make a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of it's very interesting. I've got a number of books on it, and if anybody wants to know some of the books that I use for just overall inspiration on anything, I'll be happy to give those out to anybody. They're older. Some of them have been reprinted on the internet. Some of them have been turned into internet forums. Most of the guides that I have were all printed, from the mid 80s, probably into the mid 90s for the most part. So they're not digital source. They're hardcover and softcover books.
Nice. All right, cool.
I got a question.
You should make that a post, by the way. Just.
Wait, hang on. Let's not talk over each other. Just very quickly, Red, what were you going to say?
I was going to say you should post some of those links to those forums, because I'm getting in with some friends that do brew their own stuff, and right now they're really getting into kind of like the beginner mead stuff with session mead, but they're having problems getting to that past 5%, like your basic kind of like wine yeast, like proofing, and they're trying to get to the higher percentages. So maybe if there's something like that on these forums.
Well, just as a start, if you want to get into the higher percentages, you need yeast nutrient, and you also need to discuss with anybody on the forum, depending on what I guess variety they're trying to get, or what type of characteristics they're trying to get out of whatever it is that they're making. Some yeasts have already been vetted as far as what will handle a higher alcohol environment versus what won't. Or will you need to pitch a second type of yeast once your first fermentation is done, because you may need something to carry the weight the rest of the way, to produce that additional amount of alcohol, because many of your yeasts are designed to be fragile and die in an environment that's 5-6%, because that's what people drink.
He's one of the guys in the comments, by the way. That guy that he's got posted up. That's one of my friends. So,
all right, cool.
Yeah,
nice.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir.
Now, I lost my train of thought now.
All right, Nick is next. Never mind.
You SOB, go ahead.
You're done. You're cut off. We'll come back to you, Red. Don't worry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nick. Let us have it.
Well, I wanted to go back to something that Robert brought up earlier about the decline of places for men to drink, and what I think, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the way I take that is, there used to be men's clubs that were men's clubs, and you go there. If you go there and you're going to not drink alone and you're going to drink too much, that was where you did it. It wasn't in public. The guy that gets drunk down at the corner bar is usually the guy that's got a lot of problems in life. But the decline of places, and now it's really been relegated down here anyway to back porches and hunting clubs where people don't bring their wives and girlfriends and daughters, or at least they don't bring them all the time. Or there are certain times where you don't bring them because it's a different kind of vibe that night.
It's just not appropriate. Yeah.
Right. And so that's, to me, that's because the ethic that I tried to impart to my sons was, drink like a man, not like a frat boy. And that was a goal, right? That wasn't a starting point because they were young and they were going to go through the same thing that a lot of us do. But you come to a point where, I'm not going to drink with you if I don't at least think I like you. And I'm not gonna get too drunk out, and I'm not gonna drink a lot out in public because that puts me in a position of weakness. But you do want places where you can drink, and you don't want to have to, be too careful about it. And if you're among trusted friends, and you're not just out in public where there's all kinds of shit can happen when you're drunk in public. Just ask Ron White, right? And that's the real problem now, is because I see too many men drinking like frat boys, just going out to the cigar lounge or wherever and getting hammered. And that's not, I don't mind overindulging a little bit every now and then, but do it the right way,
Well, there's a time and place for that, and
exactly. Also, there's an appropriateness to it.
If I could throw out, it's really also a question of like what kind of person are you when you've overindulged just a little bit. If you're, for example, I was reading about John Wayne. Apparently, when they were doing movies, people understood that you needed to shoot all the scenes before noon because by then he had quite a bit to drink and he was a mean drunk. And so there's some people, either that or they just say things that are stupid or inflammatory or they're not agreeable. Like there's some people I know that when they've had too much to drink, they just get really disagreeable and they almost are looking for a fight of some kind. And you don't want to be with that guy in a bar where he's trying to provoke people. And you clearly know like that one guy he's pissing off is capable of pulling out a knife and just gutting him like a fish right there. Yeah. Whereas there's other people when they have a little too much to drink, they're like, they're just overly friendly, and then they end up buying you a $20 drink and you try and tell them not to. And they're like, no, dude, it's fine. And then they pay for it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'll take 20 bucks. As Aaron would say, $20 is $20, right?
That's right. He doesn't care.
Yes, it is.
Love you. Long time, $5.
No, he wants 20 for his work.
Yeah, in Cappy's case, $20.
He goes through a lot of knee pads.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to add that you're exactly right. And the other thing is, Rob and I have talked before about how you want to know what your girl is like when she's had a little bit too much to drink. And you kind of want to know the same thing with your friends, because if you're going out, you're hanging out somewhere and they drink too much, it's exactly like you said. Are they the kind of dude that's going to end up getting you into a fight, or are they going to, piss off the bartender, or are they going to do like all this other bullshit that's not conducive to a good time? And I associate sitting back and having some bourbon, which is mostly all I drink, with having a good time and relaxing and having a conversation, enjoying life. And you can't do that if you're having to, intentionally or not, beat the shit out of somebody that's trying to beat the shit out of you because your friend was trying to beat the shit out of them,
Yeah, being hyper aware while you're sitting there trying to relax and drink is not a good mix.
Well, I don't know, Rob.
Yeah, but I'd say also, like, if you're not able to take some guy aside after he's had a little bit to drink and be like, dude, you need to chill out. If they're like, no, dude, it's fine or whatever, it's like, okay, that's not a guy that you go out drinking with. Correct. And it's also because they end up they say things that. You remember that scene from The Patriot where Mel Gibson's character walks into that one tavern and he goes, "God bless King George," and everyone turns around.
They turn around, they're ready to fucking kill him. Yeah.
Like I know he was sober. He was doing that to like just prove that there was a lot of patriots in that room.
Yep.
But you've got guys who will do that drunk, be like, they'll walk into the bar where just if you say something, it's going to piss off a lot of people, right? And they don't know when to like shut it.
Yeah, I've been in a place like that up in northern Ohio near Lake Erie. I was at a shooting competition when I was in the service, and the only bar we could find was this locals only kind of hunting lodge kind of place, and it was definitely one of those places when we walked in, everybody knows everybody's name, but they didn't know our names, so they were definitely giving us the stink eye for a while. But
like, who are you?
Yeah. But when a buddy of mine walked in behind me, he was actually wearing his fatigue jacket, and so once they found out we were military, it got a lot easier. But I was going to say, Rob can definitely comment on this, because although I don't know him well, I know him well enough to know that he's been with some interesting people in his lifetime, and there's something to be said for
Rob's got some stories.
Mud checking, your companions to make sure if they're Rob knows what I'm talking about. So
you dirty mud checker, you.
Yeah, that's a well, I mean, Rob, tell him, explain what a mud check is, basically. What.
Well, you tell me what a mud check is, because I think we may have a different definition.
Well, I know with certain motorcycle groups and associations, that has a very definite meaning and goes to some very strong and stringent testing. But basically, putting someone in a situation where the defenses are down, the situation is very uncertain, and trying to let a person's true character kind of come through. A very extreme version of in vino veritas, sometimes involving illegal substances, but going back to what Nick had said earlier about, being with someone who gets a few drinks in them, if you want to see your woman's personality, find out what she's like when she's had a few drinks. Well, find out what your buddies are like when they've had a few drinks in them. And obviously with like I said, certain motorcycle groups and associations, that goes to a very a definite extreme. But I was hoping Rob would elaborate a little bit more on that.
I will give an example of what you're talking about. So a few years back, when I was running around with a particular group, the president of the club, of the chapter, had a casino night in his house. And he invited all of us and a bunch of other people. And I remember there was a young man who came to the event. Apparently he was a neighbor, lived a couple houses down or something. And when I say young man, I'm saying 21, 22. Okay. And he comes in, and of course there's alcohol, lots and lots and lots of alcohol. Everybody was drinking. Well, this young man decided, after I don't know how many drinks, but he decided that he was bulletproof and invincible, and he was Casanova, and he was pretty much everything else combined. And he started making moves on a bunch of the women that were there. Well, all of the women there were spoken for. They were all somebody's old lady. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was sitting talking to, I think it was the treasurer of the club. And the next thing I know, my girlfriend at the time comes up to me and mentions this young man and about how he's been making moves and he's getting a little touchy-feely with her and with the sergeant at arms' wife.
Ooh.
So I decided,
but no.
Well, I knew what would happen if the sergeant at arms found out. So I thought, well, I'm going to go and try and diffuse this before it really gets ugly. So I had gone up to him and I was like, hey, the women here are spoken for. You might want to keep your hands off them. And that's about how I said it. Well, that's when he thought that he was invincible, and he said a few things to me. I think some of the words were, go fuck yourself. Well, about that time, I was like, wow, okay. And I just kind of backed away a little bit and let it go for a second. And it was about that time he started getting handsy with the Sergeant at Arms' wife again. Well, I went and mentioned to the Sergeant at Arms, hey, you seeing this? And he, he was about 3 sheets to the wind, but he was kind of like, huh? And I'm like, look to your left. And from there, it was on. He's like, come with me. That's what he said to me. Well, of course, there was a couple other guys that were kind of watching and taking notes. And I kind of looked at them and I was like, we escorted that young man off the premises.
Nice.
And he got probably the beating of his life because we left him out on the lawn.
Nice.
He had it coming. He was warned, and he decided that he could take on everyone. Well, we decided we were all his huckleberries.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, you can take all of us. Then let's see it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
He couldn't take all of us. He couldn't take all of us.
Especially fucking drunk as fuck.
Well, yeah, there was that. I mean, granted, the alcohol probably numbed a lot of pain, but I'm pretty sure the next morning he was feeling it pretty hard.
No doubt.
I was going to say.
The president of the club finally came over at one point after we had come back in, and he was like, hey, what happened to what's his name? And I was like, oh, he went home.
Mm-hmm.
He's like,
hard way.
well, he was like, that's not how I heard it. I'm like, well, if you don't want to know, don't ask.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And so there's been a few instances of that over time that somebody, whether it was an outsider or somebody from a different club, sometimes we had to take care of, in-house. Somebody would get a little too rambunctious, and we've been around bigger clubs where we had to take one of our own, and if he didn't want to listen to the voice of reason, then he got a different voice of reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people, you can let them drink a lot and they're fine. Some people, the line that, okay, after about 4, he's done, cut him off. And then there's some where it's not a drop. And there's a few that I've met in life, both in the club and outside the club. There's people I've met where I'm always watching. I'm always paying attention to what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're behaving. And I'm making little mental notes. And there's some that I've looked at and it's like, never again.
Yeah.
The next event, whatever that event is, they don't get an invite because
Exactly.
I don't want to deal with their bullshit.
Seriously.
Whatever that bullshit may be, whether they get violent or they get out of hand. It's like, I am not here to fucking babysit anyone.
Yeah,
Right.
And that includes women.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I've had women in my life that some of them can hold their booze and they're just fine. Most of them can hold it up to a point. And then after that, it's like, okay, you're done. You're not drinking anymore. You're done here because you're going to get out of line. You're going to start lipping off, or you're going to start throwing up or doing something that it's like, I'm not your dad. I'm not here to babysit.
Well, the worst is where they do the whole, let's you and him fight, where she either picks a fight with a guy that, you've got to get involved in, or worse, she starts, acting out, and it's in a setting where there's other drunk guys who want a white knight for a woman, and they see her fighting with you, and then they want, it's just like, yeah, dude, not that. Those are situations where it's just things can get very ugly very fast. And so, especially, you know, like with guys picking fights with other guys, or it's the girl picking a fight with a guy, or the girl's picking a fight with you, and other guys want to intervene because they're drunk and they want to, you know, they think that that's going to win fair lady's honor or attention.
That's a great way to get killed.
That's a great, well, yeah. And so, yeah, like this is kind of why I have a test where it's like, if you can't convince, if a guy who's had too much to drink, you're like, hey, dude, we need to like back down. If they're just like, they don't care, it's like, yeah, it's almost like that 30-second rule from Heat, the movie Heat. It's like, if that's going on, you walk. If you feel like there's something bad's about to go down, you're not under any obligation, even if it's a buddy. It's like, dude, I'm leaving. You want to come with me? Great. I think you're going to cause trouble. You just walk at that moment.
Exactly.
Do not go 30 seconds flat out in the car or ride share or taxi or whatever.
Exactly. And I had put this in the chat earlier. It was a saying that one of my instructors had. And I don't know if he heard it from a friend or he came with himself. The guy he knew says, you know, don't kick it with tricks. That's how he said it. Eventually, you know, the guy says it long enough. You know, it's curious. You ask him, well, what's a trick? He looks at him and says, a trick is somebody that will get you in trouble for something that they did. And, you know, as TJ has put it, and Rob as well, you know, that could be another guy who, you know, thinks he could take on an entire room full of bikers while hammered. You know, or it's a girl, you know, whether it's yours or someone else, you know, ends up, you know, getting half the bar, the entire bar, or the club, or whatever it is. So let's just say make things kinetic, because women. It's best to be able to discern like who that kind of person is. And you think TJ was saying earlier, you know, you have different types of drunks. Rob would know this as well. You know, if you can identify the angry drunks and avoid them at all costs, that's probably one of the most important things. And
unless they're on your,
I don't know, as far, you know,
because the club I belonged to, about half of them were angry drunks, but they were like a slow fuse. And so if they were on your side, that was a good thing to have with you.
Yeah.
That they could maintain themselves well enough that as long as, you know, nobody was messing with them, including their fellow brothers, they were okay. But the minute something popped off, boy, those guys were up and at it fast. So
I'm glad you brought that up. Now, this is something I've noticed here. I mean, just some of the bars that I've gone to. Have any guys ever drinking with anybody with a group from the Pacific Islands, like Samoa, Tonga, places like that?
No.
Yeah. No, but it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I was going to throw this out there. Is that, you know, depending on the group and the culture, it's like with some people getting together to drink, everybody kind of like becomes friends and buddies when they've had a little bit too much. With other people, if they're gonna drink, they're like they're gonna end up they're gonna end up like knifing each other afterwards. And so it reminds me of that scene from The Quiet Man where John Wayne and his you know future brother-in-law have like this long.
That's an awesome scene.
Yeah. Yes. And then they go to the pub and they get a pint and they shake hands.
And then they punch each other in the face again.
Yep. It's like this whole idea of like it's super. The question is like, is it superficial or is it like really deep, or if there's other problems like that? So that's another thing that I think about when when I'm thinking about who do I want to hang out with for the evening or go drinking with. If it's somebody who's like going to become more friendly and like they ingratiate themselves to other people,
more amiable, they
become more friendly and they're
gregarious.
Maybe they open up a little bit and it's harmless, right? Maybe they just get a little too rambunctious, but it's like they don't mean any harm, as opposed to some people where it's like some like deep darkness comes out of their soul as a result of that.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
Right.
Having been in the military, I've been fortunate enough to have been in situations where I've ended up drinking socially with people from all over the place. And I've drank with bikers, I have drank with Samoans, I have drank with the bar band after the show in their hotel where I saw cocaine for the very first time in my life. So I've been in some interesting situations. I don't know that any of my stories are as interesting as Rob's, but I mean, that's a whole other master level of storytelling. But the thing that has been my experience is, if they like you well enough to want you to drink with them, it doesn't matter how rowdy they get. It doesn't how capable of violence they are. If they like you or respect you on some level, that they've brought you into their pack, even if it's just short term, as long as you don't do something to blow it, you're good.
You're gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you respect them, you respect their rules, you respect their, you just because you're all drinking doesn't mean you put on the other guy's colors, because you haven't earned the right to wear his jacket or his vest. So you don't do that. You also don't paw on it. But as you can ask him about something on
no
it.
simping.
You can tell him,
no simping.
Yeah, no simping. But as long as you're cool with them, the way you were when they invited you to go drinking with them, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that how the night goes, how much is drank, or where things end up. As long as you are still the basic person you were, it's all good. But man, you don't interrupt or interfere in somebody else's party unless you're invited, with certain groups, culturally, or which is kind of funny, because in a way, motorcycle clubs are one of the last real men's groups still left on the world. I mean, really. And I mean, there's a code of conduct, there's a code of behavior. As long as you adhere to the rules that you all agree on, you're fine. You don't, you get your ass kicked because you deserved it. It's the same way. It's like mi familia. It's family. Not a day went by through most of my time in junior high and high school till I moved out of the house that I didn't have to come home from school and beat the hell out of one of my little brothers for breaking a rule. That's just how it is. But he was still my little brother, and if a bunch of guys were beating up on him, I'd be right there to have his back. But he came into my room. He messed with my D&D stuff.
That's right. He was in your lair.
Yeah, he asked to be killed. So I mean, I had no other choice. But I mean, so that's been my experience, and that's drinking with bikers, drinking with bands, drinking with Samoans, and oh god, drinking with Samoans is a whole other fun level. But
Well, yeah, the reason I brought that up now, in case anyone has not doesn't know anything about just diggers from the Pacific Islanders, and the most part, they're these people. One, they're usually taller even than me. I'm 6'2". Most of them usually they're taller and larger than I am. We're not talking a small difference. We're talking at least 250, 300 pounds. Two, they usually travel in larger groups. We're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 or so, possibly even more. And three, they actually can be fun to hang out with. Now, if it's just the male groups of Pacific Islanders, that's fine. Usually they're going to be just okay with you. If it's just a group of girls, that could get a little bit volatile, but nothing crazy is going to happen. If you have a group of both, guys and girls that are from that particular group, those are the ones that I learned to avoid at all costs. Because what I've noticed, what will usually happen is, somebody, whether it's Actually, I've never actually really been the spark that sets this off, but I've watched it happen more than once. Somebody get pissed off somebody piss off one of the girls there. And they'll tell some of the other girls, and that eventually will make it back to the guys. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I think it was a TJ that said this, like that slow fuse burn. That one really is a slow fuse. Like you can watch them start to get mad, start to get spun up. One of them might actually say something, might throw a punch or two. But then it'll get to the point where you've basically got the starting lineup from the Oakland Raiders coming after you. Mm-hmm. And that is not a fight that you want to be in. I don't care what your level of a fighting skill is.
Yeah, at some point, it doesn't matter how good of a fighter you are. If you're fighting the guy who weighs 150 pounds more than you, you're going to lose.
Yeah. I was lucky. The group I was in was all guys, so that was cool. But, well, you throw women into the mix sometimes, and it's volatile.
Here's the reality.
Yeah, it's very volatile. Yeah, exactly.
We don't have to dwell on this too much more. We can always switch over to talking about different. I've got a couple of. We also want to talk about this. We'll switch over to this. So people were asking about the peated single malt Irish whiskey that I have.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is here. This is what it is, and so it says it's the only Irish peated single malt whiskey in existence today, and what it does is it double distills in 2 small pot stills. And it's a combination of old and young whiskey. So it has a combination of like malt and fruit flavors. So it tastes a little bit, it smells like a peat scotch, mm-hmm. which is all scotch. So I'm being redundant, but
yeah, but yeah,
it tastes like a whiskey. And that's what's really kind of like, you're being blasted with 2 different flavors, like the aroma when you're smelling it, and then when you're tasting it. So this is definitely not something I would ever. It's not a mixer drink. This is not. Most scotches I would never consider to be mixers. I would never put it in with something else. So, but this is one. This is the only Irish peated single malt whiskey. So it's a very interesting one, and I got it for my birthday this year. So it was kind of cool. A couple other ones I wanted to show off was this one. I showed it about 2 years ago. This is an apple brandy from Calvados, which is Normandy, France, and I got it during the 75th anniversary of D-Day. If you look carefully, there's an airplane up in the back, and then mm-hmm. there is a paratrooper right there.
Oh, very cool.
So I got this in Carentan, which is also where I bought my sweatshirt that I was showing off on I think it was Rollo's channel. Mm-hmm. And then this I also got from Normandy. This is a 75th anniversary wine, which was really great. We ended up drinking all of it because it was good. But
that tends to happen with good drinks.
Yeah, but we drank it on the 75th anniversary of D-Day, so I saved it for a good occasion.
Was that a wine from the Carentan region, or where was that?
This was from. A lot of it's in French. It's from the Normandy region. Yeah.
Normandy. So okay.
Yeah. So this other one is local. This is from. So I live outside of a Bavarian tourist town called Leavenworth, Washington, not the prison in Kansas. And this is a double Cabernet. That's a very Bavarian
double Cabernet.
Yeah, it's really nice. It was really good when I had it. And then the other one I had
was doubly fermented.
Possibly. This one, I don't know how good this one is, but I just love the label. This is a Glühwein.
Yeah, that's a very cool label.
Yeah, so Glühwein is a spiced red wine, and I've actually made some of my own.
Oh, do you mull that?
Yeah, I used to use Cabernet Sauvignon, and then I realized somebody told me that you can use sangria, and that makes it a little bit sweeter, so you don't have to use as much sugar. The problem is that sangria can be a lot of these wines can be pretty expensive that you use to make Glühwein. So, but the thing is, I don't want to use bottom shelf wines, because I have a buddy of mine who's in the wine industry, and he told me what they do with those wines, like the kind of the $2 chuck stuff. Some of the $2 chuck stuff is actually pretty good. A lot of it is not. And so you kind of got to know who's doing what with what.
Right.
Well, TJ, isn't that the idea with the sangria, though, is you're supposed to take like a low quality wine and elevate it with add-ins?
Yeah, I mean, it worked. It worked. It's just I don't know if you want to use Carlo Rossi style sangria, if you want to use something that's a little bit more top shelf. I don't know.
It depends on the context. If you have a large party, then you want something that you can guzzle down and is very cheap.
Yeah.
If you're, it's a more intimate gathering, then no, you want something more top shelf. I guess that's really good for any. It's a good rule of thumb for any alcoholic endeavor.
Yeah, it reminds me of Swedish glug, because it's a red wine mulled with like raisins and other stuff put in it and served around Christmas time, and it's kind of a traditional Swedish mulled wine drink.
Yeah. The nice thing about bottles like this is that if you want to, you can fill it with other red wine. And then if you're having an occasion where people will appreciate whatever it is. I have a buddy of mine who's really into World War II stuff. So when I served that wine on the anniversary of D-Day, he got really excited. I've got a couple of other cool bottles that you can you can serve stuff in that's similar. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but just for a lot of people, it's the aesthetics. Like Chianti, I have a bottle of Chianti over here, which is the wine that's served in a basket.
Sangiovese, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was talking to a guy who sold that stuff, and he goes, from the company, and he just said, the wine's pretty kind of mainstream. It's not like anything special. It's pretty, I don't want to say standard, but like it doesn't have, you can drink it with pretty much anything you want. And he says, the wine's pretty good, but like what sells it is the basket, is the aesthetics of it. It just, it invokes this image of Italy. So when they're, people are pouring it with a little basket string or whatever, it's much more Italian seeming than serving it in a really nice bottle.
So you get those candle wax strip bottles. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, maybe you guys can answer a question for me, because I've had a couple of friends in my group lately talk about this. Port. What's the aesthetic with port? I don't understand.
It's a nice after dinner drink. That's before, that would be before that's your starter.
Yeah.
Port's more of a bit of a dessert, and Chess can correct me on that, but I think that's more of a dessert, kind of like after dinner drink wine. With your cigar, your brandy, your port.
Yeah, Jefferson used to drink. Thomas Jefferson used to drink. What was it? Madeira. It was a type.
Madeira.
Madeira. Yeah, Madeira.
Yep.
Which is
a lot of the that was a standard in a lot of the taverns, especially here in New Jersey.
Yeah. It reminds me of that story where they talked about the list of all the stuff they drank after they'd signed the Constitution at the convention. It's like, at the very bottom of the list, it says, and there was only 59 guys.
That's funny.
George Washington's first political campaign when he was running for some office, I can't remember what it was, but I mean, it involved a significant amount of alcohol. He just bought drinks for everybody.
As well it should.
As it should be.
Yeah. As it's so.
Well, to answer Red's question about. Well, to answer Red's question about port, from what I know, and I remember my late grandma, that was her go-to drink. Should get why that wasn't in the moment. Port, and there's other ones. I think sherry's another one. Those are what are known as fortified wines. Now, I don't know if there really is a finer version of that. Maybe it is a dessert teeth, as Vince said. Like something to enjoy after your meal.
So
the most wines, I think the industry average is 12%
enjoy them. you can enjoy them anywhere. I mean, you drink what you want when you want. But I mean, as far as like a little ritual is concerned, yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's okay. I don't know about the whole ritual side. I just know that tended to be let's just say bang for your buck. As far as the wine world goes, because I think the one that she would get, it clocks in at around 18% alcohol. And the standard for wine, at least as far as like your drinking charts, where I think it's 12%.
Well, I mean,
most
I've
wines
got my
are,
sweet
what I
vermouth
usually
right
share about
here.
13.5, but
I've got my sweet vermouth
vermouth,
right
I
here
think that's
right
a different
now,
story.
and that's technically a fortified wine, and that's 16%. So I mean, yeah.
Well, vermouth,
Hey,
I think, if anybody drinks this straight, go ahead and let me know. But that's usually used in like Manhattans and other mixed drinks. It's an additive. It's a mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that, Nick?
When KZ gets back, I'd like to hear his thoughts on what makes a good bourbon, because he's pretty knowledgeable about bourbon and shit like that.
We haven't heard
question,
from that side for a while.
Yeah,
so,
KZ, are you sandbagging?
Yeah.
Where you at? Where you at, brother?
Let's hear from them.
There he is.
There he is.
He was on a
Did you hear
beer run.
Did you hear Nick's question? And you might be muted.
Yeah, what makes a good bourbon?
Yep.
Was that what you asked?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Aside from the mash bill, how long it's in the barrel and where it is in the warehouse. The bourbon is made by the trips in and out of the barrel. Now, your mash bill got a lot to do with it, but how many trips it makes into the barrel and how many trips back out it makes more of a difference. So that depends actually on where in the warehouse it is, and the char in the barrel makes a big difference too. You get heavy number 2, number 3, and leave it in there about 6, 8, 10 years, you'll have a very sweet bourbon. You get a number 4, leave it in there for 3 years, you'll get basically a burnt match.
Okay. Now, I'd made the statement earlier that I thought bourbons, and one of the reasons I prefer them is they tend to be smoother than whiskey or scotch, whether it's Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey, whatever.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? And am I right in thinking it's because of the high quantity of the corn in the mash that makes bourbon a little bit smoother, or is the corn just making it a little bit sweeter and the smoothness comes from the aging process? What?
The smoothness comes from the aging process. The sweetness comes from the corn, unless it's a wheated, and then you get a lot of sweet out of the wheat. But it still depends on how many trips in and out of the barrel, in and out of the wood in the barrel that it makes.
Okay.
Because with bourbon, the whole thing is the age in it. Because most whiskey is 1 to 2 years old.
Right.
It sits in a barrel for 1 or 2 years, makes maybe 1 or 2 trips in and out. And a lot of the sugars in bourbon come from the barrel itself, from the white oak.
Okay.
Because when you char it, it basically caramelizes all the sugars that are in the wood itself, and then you're imparting that into the bourbon.
Now, would you agree with me that ryes tend to be, although they can be sweet as well, that ryes tend to be kind of have a more of a crisp flavor to them? They're not nearly as smooth as bourbons are, or is that just depending on the rye versus what rye you're drinking versus what bourbon you're drinking?
Yeah, it depends more on which one you're getting and how it's processed. Your mash bill's got a lot to do with your start, and then how it's aged has more to do with it. Rye can be pretty sweet and pretty smooth, but generally it is sharper. I don't.
Yes.
It's got a sharper taste. It's not got the, I hate to use this word, nuance that bourbon has.
I agree.
Because bourbon being in the barrel so long draws a lot of its flavor from the barrel itself.
Now, here's an interesting thing I found out, KZ. Apparently, there are some bourbons to meet the bourbon standard. They will actually have the bottom of a burnt barrel cut open, and they'll pour it through and make sure it drips through that barrel and pour it into a different thing to cure later. And that's like a solution they use for like cheaper bourbons. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, they can't legally call it a bourbon if they do that.
That's right.
Bourbon goes into the barrel, comes out of the barrel. You can't do anything else with it besides put it in a bottle.
Because I
Otherwise,
remember go ahead.
Otherwise, it's not legally bourbon. Now, I'm sure there's some people out there trying to get away with that, but they will cause you problems if you try it.
Okay. Because I remember watching something. Apparently, they said some kind of process about using one barrel to get that bourbon standard and then dripping it out into another barrel. And that was used to like get a different curing, like a fermenting process with another barrel.
Well, it won't ferment. It only ferments, in the still itself. But if you do that, you can do that, but it's not. They don't call it bourbon or what?
Or is it a mix?
It's a mix. You're taking a bourbon and then curing it in another barrel. Is what you're doing.
Yeah.
When they do that. Now, there's a different process with Tennessee whiskey where they charcoal filter it.
Yeah.
Right.
After it comes out of the barrel, they run it through maple charcoal. And that changes the flavor. But you'll notice that Tennessee whiskey does not have bourbon on it. It's that sour mash, which is the same thing, but they can't call it a bourbon because of that extra process.
But also, a bourbon can't call itself a Tennessee whiskey. There's only 3 or 4 places that can actually call what they make Tennessee whiskey officially, right?
The only ones I know of are George Dickel, Jack Daniels, and Bell Mead. They're the only ones that can technically or factually call themselves a Tennessee whiskey. They're building another distillery outside of Nashville somewhere. I think John Rich is wanting to do it, but he wants to be a 4th one. But those are the only 3 I'm aware of.
Right.
If you go to some drinking establishments or restaurants, if you go to most restaurants here in Alabama and sit at the bar and ask them what bourbons they have, the first thing they'll tell you is Jack Daniels. And
Jack Daniels, yeah.
When I was younger and more spirited, I used to engage them in conversation about that matter, and it didn't win me any favors, so I overlook it now at my old age. But
I just ignore the conversation unless somebody asks a legitimate question about it. But now there is a very big difference. I've got some George Dickel in there, number 12. It's pretty good, but it is not a bourbon. Gotcha. It doesn't taste like it, doesn't smell like it, and it's just not nearly as smooth either to me.
Well, the question I want to ask you, which may not be answerable on this live stream, is: have you ever known any non-professional? Well, I guess I wouldn't say that. So any non-corporate bourbon distillers in your neck of the woods?
Bathtub.
There might have been 1 or 2 over the years.
3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Myself included at one point, though I'm not admitting anything if PATF is in here.
You heard.
That was a very long time ago, too.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
He's speaking for a friend.
I've heard of some boys up the road. I'll say that, but that's about all I know.
One of my favorite drinking establishments used to be, we lovingly called it the Haunted Bar because it was a bar featured on one of those ghost hunter specials or something like that. But it was very much kind of a locals place. Had really good food too. But during Prohibition, it was a candy shop because by being a candy business, they could buy lots of sugar to make alcohol, and no one. Well, there's a reason they're buying lots and lots of sugar and these other ingredients. And anyway, supposedly it was a hangout of John Dillinger back in the day, and since he was a local, and there were still some bullet holes in the wall and stuff, but it was
Nice.
it was a really nice place. But what's funny is talking about whiskey. I think wasn't one of the first real post-Revolutionary War, one of the first big tests of the new American military, the Whiskey Rebellion.
Yeah, they pulled George Washington out of retirement to put it down.
Yeah, so
Whoa, did somebody say Whiskey Rebellion? It's almost like somebody has a flag like that in their background.
I was wondering if they would comment or someone else, but I figured this was the right crowd for it.
Absolutely.
But I guess, bourbon is probably, as whiskey type drinks go, spirits, it's a pretty uniquely American or New World drink, because obviously the requiring 51% corn in the mash. I was wondering, Chesty, is there an American beer that's an American beer, or is it all what various immigrants from either Germany, the Netherlands, England, Ireland, whatever they brought over? I mean, is there something you would consider a uniquely American beer?
There's American barley wines that were distinctly American when they were first made. There were also brown ales that Jefferson used to discuss in his own writings back and forth between people, talking about how much better my beer is than the commercial brewer's beer. We get, so many barrels from a bushel versus them, and it's much better in all ways. Here in the U.S., we unfortunately were the first to start using rice in lagers. So that's where you get, your Rocky Mountain Silver Bullets and Budweiser and, those types of beers. It's when they started using rice as a grain, as opposed to in Europe and particularly Germany with their purity laws, where, you could only use barley and hops and water to make your beer. They used rice in large amounts and still do to make American light beers. And unfortunately, that is, at this point in time, the legacy of American beers is garbage added to the pantheon.
Right.
But if you want to talk about like a North American style of beer that is unique to the Americas, it was brought over with German immigrants, but Mexican lagers, dark Mexican lagers, are uniquely American.
Okay.
So like a really good, a decent cold Dos Equis, those types of beers are uniquely American as well. Another uniquely American beer because of the type of hops that are used. The American IPA is a uniquely American beer as well because of the Cascade hop.
Okay.
Cascades!
Does anyone make a Jeffersonian brown ale?
I make it.
Do. Well, no. I went to.
I make it. It's a very heavy beer compared to most that you would get commercially. It's higher in alcohol. It's sweeter. It's
I like it already.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. It's basically the best porter you'd probably want to drink.
Yeah,
I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold.
You're singing the right
TJ,
stuff, man.
TJ, you did have. In fact, hang on. I'll bring
we
up.
have a
Keep
video
talking. I'll bring up the video, but TJ giving his.
Like 5 years ago. It's crazy. It's been 5. Not with you, Vince, but I went actually to DC and I bought. When I was in DC, we went to Virginia with a relative of mine. We went to Mount Vernon and bought a bunch of beers that were based off of Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson's beer recipes. And so I was able to enjoy some of that stuff. So we went to the restaurant a couple of years ago with Vince, when I first met Vince in Gettysburg, we were in Philly and enjoying some of that stuff.
That was before the Village by the Sea.
Yeah, the Village
with
before
Rob,
the Village
because
yeah.
you'll hear Rob's voice too. Hang on, let me go find it. Keep talking, keep going.
Yeah,
keep going.
no, like the beers
boy.
were great. I loved them. I thought that they were really well done, and I can understand why someone would be drinking a bunch of that stuff and be like, "Yeah, screw these taxes. We're declaring independence. Grab our guns, guys." I mean, for people who don't know, back in the day, tea and ale was basically the only thing that you could drink back then because the water was contaminated. It wasn't safe to drink. And so that's why a tax on tea was such a big deal. But also that's where guys would work all day and then they'd go to the tavern, not just to drink for socially, but also to hydrate. And that's where they discussed politics. And that's why the Sons of Liberty was founded and created in a Boston tavern.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of important conversation.
Yeah, to add to that, TJ, I actually have a transcription of the original recipe, scaled to.
Oh, dude, that's awesome!
To a 5-gallon batch. If you'd like me to read what transcription went along with it in the description, I think you'll like this.
One second. We're gonna put the video.
Along with writing the Declaration of Independence, inventing the dumbwaiter, and founding the University of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson was also an accomplished homebrewer. And his beers were considered among the finest in the colonies. And like every great home brewer, he compared his beers favorably to the commercial breweries of the time. In a letter to a fellow home brewer and neighbor, James Madison, Jefferson wrote, "We brew 100 gallons of ale in the fall and 100 gallons in the spring, taking 8 gallons from a bushel of wheat. The public brewers take 15, which makes their liquor meager and often vapid. Some things never change." Okay.
That's great.
And then this is the recipe. It's 6 pounds of pale 2-row barley. This is a all grain recipe. 6 pounds of pale 2-row barley, 4 pounds of malted wheat, a pound of molasses, 1.5 ounces of Goldings, which is Kent Goldings hops out of England for bittering, another ounce for aroma, and then American ale yeast, and then 1 cup of extracted malt for priming, which means what you put in the bottle along with the fermented juice to have it ferment the rest of the way and provide the carbonation in the bottle. So, you basically put it all together, boil it for you mash the grains, you collect 6 gallons of wort, which is the water mixed with the spent grain and sugars from that. You add molasses, you add the hops, you boil it for an hour, and then you add another ounce of the hops during the last 10 minutes of your boil. You cool it to room temperature, then you add your yeast, you ferment for 2 weeks, bottle using the extract, and then you age it in the bottle again for between 7 and 21 days. You end up with a beer that's about 6.5% alcohol, and it's a sweet, wonderful thing. So
wow, sounds like it.
So yeah,
nice.
that's the recipe that Jefferson used, but
that's
scaled down to 5-gallon portioning.
Have you made that, Chest?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
Oh, cool.
I've made it a number of times. You just have to have the patience to extract as much sugar water out of the grains as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People who are just starting out in brewing, I don't recommend doing all grain brewing right away. It's very exasperating, and it will crush your morale when you do it at the beginning. Use the extracts. The liquid extracts. They're fine. They work good. Just make sure that your yeast and your hops are fresh, and you'll end up getting good beer. But the main thing is keep everything clean.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you've got
or things start exploding.
Yeah, well, things don't just start exploding, but you'll you'll get sick drinking your own beer, and that's never a good thing.
Sounds like the man needs more statues, not less, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, pretty much.
I have a question for Chest, actually.
Okay.
I can't remember who exactly asked if there was a beer or ale that was uniquely American. And I immediately, for whatever reason, I thought of red. Oh, okay. It was Robert. I had thought, for whatever reason, I thought red ales, but I think that's done outside of the States too. What about American strong ales?
Yeah, they started in England. The only thing that really differentiates an American style from the rest of the world is the hop bill. And every once in a while, we'll add rice to something or wheat to it to kind of give it that, American shine. But that's the major difference. So like if somebody says it's an American IPA or something, that has more to do with the location and growing region of the hops than it does the fact that IPAs weren't invented here. They were made obviously in England and were a strong beer, highly hopped for trips to India and for the sailors to drink when they were colonizing the rest of the world. So that's where most of your beer history comes from, is just water sucked. It was dangerous. I mean, it's true. Most water supplies were, basically where people dunked their ass and, and washed their balls, and then they drank from the same things. And the only thing that was really worth drinking safely was the alcohol on board a ship. You hope when you got on there was a crate of limes and and some rum, or you were going to have a rough trip.
Fucking scurvy.
And
you're going to have fucked up gums and diarrhea most of the trip if you didn't have decent stuff to drink. So that was the whole reason for alcohol traveling the world more than anything else. And then later on, it became more of a merchant liquid. But that took time as well. And even then, people were always trying to fuck with one another. You were talking about, port and other fortified wines earlier. That was one of the major things between England and Spain. And Spain and Portugal is why they would have issues with one another, is because Portugal was always adulterating their export liquors.
What a shock.
And they just add sugar and water or different stuff to their
watering it down.
Their so-called high quality port, and ship it to other places and gouge. And you end up having wars over shipping lanes because people won't ship you the stuff that they promised. It's pretty amazing. There's 50 years there where Oporto, Madeira, and Douro, the three major port and fortified wine producing regions in the world at the time. This little coastal region of Portugal basically that had really good grapes, and they were putting out the vast majority of all of the potable, long-term storable wine in the world. Everybody was trying to copy their style and they didn't know how to. And, they just figured out that after a while, the best thing to do was just to fortify your wine with brandy or another high test alcohol for the trip, and hope that it mellowed out by the time you got to your destination.
Right.
Real quick,
Interesting.
I missed a question in the chat. Someone was asking me about my military service. I was not a combat medic. I was a 67 Yankee was my MOS, which made me, and which we lovingly called 67 Yank me. But I was an attack helicopter mechanic, which meant I worked on Cobra attack helicopters. So I was a snake doctor, not a combat medic. Although that would have probably have been what I would have gone before had I not worked in aviation, only because I originally was going to go to flight school. But right before I took my flight physical to go to warrant officer flight school in Alabama at Fort Rucker, I blew out my knee in a fall from an aircraft. So that pretty much sidelined my official piloting career in the military. So
That sucks.
someone in chat was asking, so I just wanted to throw that out there real quick, and if they were still watching. So
No, he's watching homeschool time. Let me
okay.
just play this 9-second quick video here of TJ giving his thumbs up for the Jefferson's Tavern Ale.
Jefferson's Tavern Ale. Jefferson's Tavern Ale. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that was the tavern that had been there. Well, there was a fire and there's some movement and some reconstruction, but that was a tavern there that Ben Franklin and the rest sat there and plotted shit. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, since we talked
That's
about
right.
American spirits as far as whiskeys go, and bourbon and American beers, what are your guys' thoughts about American wines? It seems like when the whole wine thing started in California, it was kind of sacrilegious and poo-pooed by the rest of the world, but it certainly seems over the
Go
last
watch the
decades.
movie. Go watch the movie Bottle Shock.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've actually seen it. That's part of why I was bringing it up. But since I know some of the people here are also wine drinkers, I wanted to get the wine drinkers' input on American wine.
Fan of Zinfandel myself.
Good, TJ. I have to take a piss.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I have a couple of relatives, believe it or not, who were alive during the 30s, and were able to speak to, at least with Salt Lake City. And back in the day, back in the 30s, people didn't drink wine. It's probably because they weren't able to drink wine during Prohibition. Wine takes much longer to develop, to grow and cultivate. Everybody drank liquor. People didn't really, in upper class, people didn't drink beer. Beer was considered for
lower class, yeah,
for the lower class, and that really, I think, continued. And then you had, back through a certain period of time, you had kind of the mainstream beer types that were there. Wine really took off, I think, with the Napa Valley stuff, and them winning that contest. If you watch the movie Bottle Shock,
right.
But I can tell you this: Washington State, our area has really just exploded in terms of wines. Like we have, I'm not just saying this because it's Washington State, it's my home state, but we have probably wines that match that of France or California. And what was funny is I went to Champagne, France, where they literally grow the grapes that you can call champagne.
Champagne, yeah.
A lot of those grapes are actually from America. Because all theirs died of disease or plague. I can't remember what it was, but they said like all the grapes there that were being grown were from America because all theirs had died. Yet there's the only ones that can be called champagne technically. The rest of it is sparkling wine.
Right.
So I think that it's a lot of it is trends. I mean, now we're seeing this White Claw seltzer based stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We're seeing this weird trend towards like, I think it's because people are just drinking so much more or something like that.
Well, there are a lot of single ladies with cats that
all the single ladies,
right?
You guys talking about box wine? There is something to be said for box wine when you're hosting parties because you can have box wine that will last for months.
Those keg alcohols have been around forever. There were wine coolers. There was Zima. There was Champagne. If you're old enough to remember that shit.
Champagne. Oh my God!
Always been that crap that's been
fucking Boone's Farm over here.
Any of you guys drink malt duck in your teenage years? Any of you old enough to remember malt duck?
I've heard of that.
What is that?
I was going to bring that up. MD 2020 or something.
So as I was saying, Vince, like after Napa Valley kind of gained some prominence with that famous French contest of wine tasting, the blind tasting. What happened here in Washington State is we've really exploded for two reasons. One, we got the wine, but we also grow 75% of the United States hops. And so beers here, or beer producers here, can get their hops imported or shipped directly. They don't have to freeze them. And that definitely shows up in the quality of beers. So back in the day, back in the 30s, when my grandmother was, basically an adult, and she was going to these clubs or wherever, social clubs, country clubs, not nightclubs or anything like that. People drank liquor. They drank old fashions. They drank
2 martini lunches. Yep.
Yeah, they drank champagne cocktails. They didn't drink beer, and they didn't drink wine. The wine, there just wasn't a lot of it. I think it was because at that point, Prohibition was still affecting the crop.
Well, it's interesting you say that about Prohibition with wine. Here in Jersey, the Renault Winery got around that with a loophole.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this before. They would make, and they would sell them in pharmacies, and they were called tonics. They were like pharmaceutical. So they were still in production during Prohibition. And just real quick, hold that thought, TJ. Make the Best. The Finger Lakes region is great. They're heavy too. The Canandaigua area is very heavy too with the Concord grape. You roll your window down while you're passing through there, and you can smell the grape. It's fucking fantastic. And then there was one more, Sass. Yeah, the heirloom grapes. The French kind of got away with that as far as before that disease set in. That's when the South American vineyards started taking off, because they took some of those heirloom grapevines and transported them over there for the cheap labor, and they wanted to get some vineyards going over there. So now you have some of those heirloom vines coming out of Argentina and Chile, or Chile. So yeah, continue, TJ.
Oh, I was just saying how I think a lot of it's cultural stuff. Back in the day, beer was considered something for the lower middle class. I mean, back in England, a couple centuries ago, gin was for the poor people, and beer wasn't as well, because it was just cheaper and easier to produce.
Well, for the longest time.
No joke. She went to this. They were Protestants in Salt Lake City back in the 30s, which was 100% Mormon. They were the only Protestants with a whole bunch of other people. So they went to this place called the Alta Club, which was, my guess is a place where Protestants could go drink, because
undress for sailors.
Well, no, Mormons don't drink. Is there something funny about that?
Your grandmother undressed for sailors. Shut up. It's a running joke that Nick always puts out on Twitter. It's fucking hysterical. If you followed it, then you know. We don't know anything about your grandmother. We're not busting on your grandmother per se.
We're busting on you.
We're not laughing at you.
It's a general rule of thumb, and it's not meant to be.
It's not meant for you. It's
right.
Yeah, and not you. Everyone here on this panel, everyone watching and listening later, your fucking grandmother undressed for sailor. She was a dirty slut. Okay.
Oh God,
dirty slut.
My great grandmother. I guess there was this picture of my great grandmother during.
That's it. We're done. No more. We don't need no more. That's it. A picture of your great grandmother. That's it.
Yeah.
Cut it right here.
The stories I could tell.
Oh, I'm sure. Jesus Christ.
Well, I spent a lot of time with my great grandmother and my great uncle, and he was born in 1900, so he died in 1981. So I spent a lot of time with older people, because guess what? Older people actually knew crap, whereas kids my age, even back in the 60s and 70s, didn't know squat compared to people that had lived, starting at 1900 on. So anyway.
Why do I hang out with old people like you? I wonder.
Because you have no friends.
Yeah.
Hey,
you have friends now.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, see?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. What are these friends you speak of?
Yeah. And Chesty makes wine as well as beer. Is that correct?
Yes.
He just talked about that.
Yeah.
Where were you? Jesus.
No, he was I was just trying to bring it back into the conversation. So
yeah,
there was somebody.
I was just wondering if you wanted to add to what TJ was saying earlier.
Well, just America has a very well established, wine culture now, and wine making. Depending on what region of the country you're in, a lot of them are kind of niched, depending on the climate. So California is lucky; it has a bunch of microclimates, so it can grow a bunch of different varieties of grapes. Washington State, same. Oregon also has a pretty good variety, but once you get inland and you get some less, less complex microclimates like the Finger Lakes or the Traverse City area of Michigan.
Even here in Jersey.
Yep, in Jersey.
Yep.
They're very kind of limited into what they can grow and what works well.
Mm-hmm.
Normally the farther north you go, the more white grapes you end up getting. You get a lot of Rieslings, some good, some awful. Red wines tend to go, warmer. So the farther south and southwest you go, you can grow better. You can grow better reds. And then when you get into the Pacific Northwest, then you get in some really, really sweet spot areas where you can grow some really difficult grapes like Pinot Noir.
Yeah, you get really crisp light freshness because of the cooler climate, and you get that higher alcohol content when you get the warmer climates. So
you lose the acidity. That's the thing, and you can also develop some really good dessert wines up north if you have good Riesling growing regions. Just outside, just across the border. If you go to the Niagara area in Canada, right across from Buffalo, essentially, they have a wine growing region there that produces some of the best dessert wines in the world. They make ice vine there, which is late harvest Rieslings that are made from super ripe, sweet grapes that have frozen. And it's very easy then to separate large amounts of the water from the grape and leave the sweet nectar there. And it comes in small, thin bottles, very neatly packaged, and it comes at a premium. Very expensive stuff. Great with cheese and chocolate.
Okay.
But as far as whether or not it competes with the rest of the world, it's very it's very comparable. So Vince is like my younger cousin. I don't claim him, but I don't leave him in jail for that.
Well, I appreciate that, you fucking dick. I love you guys.
That's about all the family sentimentality I can handle. So cool.
It's all right. You've been drinking,
Now,
that is something I did want to bring up. California, if you think U.S. wines, as far as I could tell, Chess did a pretty good dissertation that, there, California, the Napa Valley, Santa Barbara, Lodi area, if you're a fan of Zinfandels, or Primitivo, if they could be the Italian version of that. They're well known. They make a pretty good use of that. I don't know if you've heard stories of some cabs out there selling for like $150 a bottle, $200, what have you. When if you're getting stuff out of like the Wawa Valley or something from Washington or Willamette Valley, it's like you can get some of the same quality, maybe even better, and you're not spending nearly as much as that, So that's something I was going to bring up. TJ was talking about the wines that's up here. You actually do have pretty good quality up here as far as that goes.
Well, no, I think that's one of the things that I love about Washington State is we have some of the best wines. We have some of the best beers. It's easy to prep.
Well, you'd have to. You can't afford to get them from anywhere else. So
yeah, right.
Well, no, it's just
smuggled in.
We have really good quality wines. We also have I think we produce way too many IPAs now, but
I think most places do.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with. It's like we just have too many hops, and like, all right, let's just do a triple IPA, a double hazy IPA. It's just like
I explained
deadlights in your IPAs.
I explained this on a different show. The fascination with IPA goes hand in hand with the fascination with weed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, it does. I tell you what,
the same flavors that come out in a really, really strong IPA also come out in all the terpenes from all of these, engineered, super strong strains of weed.
All you have to do is look at Google Maps and see the IPA breweries and look at the weed fields that are not too far away. Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually moving a little bit towards ciders, and unfortunately, I hate saying this, but like,
no, Amos, I'm not checking my DMs. Shut up.
One of the reasons why ciders are picking up here is because everybody's like getting intolerant of everything. They're lactose intolerant, they're gluten intolerant, they're
Jesus.
Auto they're just hyperimmune.
Autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, it's just like everybody's a spurg who's got a peanut allergy. Yeah, spurg. See,
spurg.
And so, but at the same time, I mean, I've really loved. There's a couple of places here that import Normandy ciders that are just fantastic. Normandy ciders are some of the best I've ever had, and so I get some of those. But I think that we've seen a large shift towards ciders
Strongbow
here.
is good.
We're also the apple producing capital of the world, and I'm surrounded by pear orchards in my area. So
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, so we're just producing a lot of fruits that can be used for ciders, and they're really good. There's one that's produced locally in my town that's actually pretty good. So I'm confused at like the White Claw thing.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's a huge marketing thing, like Zima in the 80s and 90s.
Women,
it's basically
want an
repackaged
excuse to
Zima.
drink. That's
Yeah,
all.
I mean,
It's just a way to sweeten alcohol so chicks will drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
It's malt liquor.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Basically.
Colt 45 with.
I've had Mad Dog 2020 and a White Claw is
Apple
not the same
flavored
as
Colt
Mad
45. That's right.
Basically, yeah.
Mad Dog
Now,
2020.
the one you need to get to chicks is called muscadine wine.
There you go.
Casey, I have a question for those wanting to get into bourbon. What's a good bourbon with training wheels to start off with?
Eagle Rare.
Eagle what?
Eagle Rare.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's a
That
10
was on
year,
my list,
really
actually.
smooth, really good, and you can actually find the stuff.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right, good.
I'd second that because down here, everybody who likes bourbon and drinks it a lot will, you'll sit around with people and they'll inevitably talk about something like Woodford Reserve, Knob Creek, or Eagle Rare is what their go-tos are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a go-to because number one, it's really good. Number two, you can find it just like
Right.
Woodford and, Knob Creek. You can find it, and the allotment coming out of Kentucky right now, it just depends on where you are, whether you're going to find a good one or not for anything reasonable.
What's the bottle price?
It's about 30. Here it's about 32.
That's reasonable. Yeah, that's
Right
a good
at
start.
I mean,
60.
that's not bad for a really good one,
Oh,
and
shit.
for a 10-year nowadays,
Mhm.
man, good luck finding one for that for a 10-year.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
All right, Amos is here. We can end the broadcast now. So what's up, Amos? So what are you drinking? What are you drinking tonight? Stop farting.
Wine.
It's a bottle. What is that? That
It's a
tells
bottle.
me nothing. What,
No,
what is it?
I'm not drinking anything. Actually, I'm sorry.
Get the fuck out of here! I'm kicking you out. Where's the kick out button? Where's it? Remove guest. Remove from stream.
Damn it, Amos.
God,
Ben,
I'm going to
Yeah,
stop
yeah.
my shift after this, dude. And even I had a drink.
I
Come
know.
on, man.
Amos,
Nothing alcohol.
Bacon is in a car, and he just showed us a liquor bottle that he was.
Yeah,
No,
come on, man. That's the game.
No excuses.
Come on, Elf Mage, step up.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it.
Did you just come off of work, Amos?
Yes.
To start drinking.
Start.
I'm looking at a bottle of something, but that's way
Don't
too
look
strong
at
for
it.
drinking this time of night.
No, it's not. Shut up.
Yeah,
Stop.
Cut it with water.
it tastes better when you drink it than when you look at it.
Exactly, it does. And you show
You're
up,
worried. Cut it with water.
right? Oh,
Now,
Jesus.
You know, you were talking about that bourbon being aged 10 years. The Starlight Distillery's Huber that I like drinking is only aged 4 years, which is part of what a minimum of 4 years, which is part of what really surprises me about how smooth it is. And it's, 53-gallon char American oak barrel. So, I mean, that part of it is normal. And I would try and show it to you. You can't see how the color of it. But despite only being aged a little over 4 years, it is surprisingly smooth. And like I said, for being around $35 a bottle, and a local product, it just surprises me at how flavorful it is, how smooth it is, how enjoyable it is. Because there seems to be a lot of different bourbons that you either pay for the name or the branding on it and not necessarily the actual quality of the product. I mean, there's a lot. It takes a little bit of research to try and find something that's enjoyable and not, bottom shelf rock gut, or something that, oh, well, yeah, I just spent $100 or $80 for this bottle of bourbon, but I could have spent, half that and gotten something that tasted just as good. So you got
to be in order to be Kentucky straight bourbon, you've got to be 4 years,
right?
By law. So you're looking at they may have 4 years on the label if they age state it at all. But odds are it's mixed with 5 and 6 year as well, which is what they do with the Evan Williams bottled in bond. I mean, it's a minimum 4 years, but it's mixed with 5 and 6 and to make it more consistent. And for $20 for a handle of it, that's not bad, and it's a good one if you want to drink it straight. In the middle of the week and just drink or want to mix it with something. Having a bourbon in the barrel for 10 years, you have to pay a lot of attention to the barrel,
right,
and where it sits in the warehouse. How many trips it makes back and forth, else it's going to pick up too much char. It's going to taste like the damn barrel. Nobody wants that.
Right.
And Eagle Rare's been doing it for about 30 years, and they've got it down pat, which is why theirs is still pretty good at a 10 year and still reasonably priced because they make a lot of it.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with a 4-year-old bourbon as long as it's made right.
Right.
The problem is a lot of people, a lot of small companies think, well, we can make a 4-year-old bourbon in this environment we've got now where bourbon is through the roof. Well, you can slap anything in a still, throw it in an oak barrel for 4 years, and call it whatever you want to by law. But if you want to sell a second bottle, you better do it right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And there's a lot of choices out there to pick from.
Well, if we ever have a gathering, I'm obviously bringing a couple of bottles of this with me to share with you guys to get.
What is wrong with you? If
I am just being,
No, don't worry about being polite.
Let the man speak. Damn it.
Yeah. So, but no, because I definitely like to get, especially some of my southern brethren who are in the heart of it, who I definitely like to get their opinion, because obviously this is a local product. So the fact that I found a product that I like that's local, it's always nice when you can support a local business. Although, like I said, they're down in southern Indiana, so they're a lot closer to Louisville than they are to Indianapolis. But I still want to, like I said, it's a good product, and at $35 a bottle, it's really good. To the guys in Ohio again, I'd mentioned that rye. Do you guys have any bourbon makers in Ohio?
Red, that'll be your area.
Yeah.
None that I know that have like any major, name of any kind yet.
Okay.
That's why it surprised me when I heard you were talking about the product out of Columbus.
Oh, okay.
So
rye,
apparently I have to search a little bit more in the Columbus area. That's probably where a lot of people are trying that.
Oh, that's okay. When I used to buy a lot of toys, I used to do a lot of shopping in Ohio, so it wouldn't surprise me that I'm buying liquor out from under your guys' noses, just like I did.
That doesn't
Star Wars figures back in the day.
Let me interject something here real quick while everybody's still on the subject. You've got to watch especially a lot of your newer distillery bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
You got to check the labeling on the back, because a lot of them buy their product from a place called MGP.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it. They've got the Bullet Bourbon is an MGP. Bullet Bourbon doesn't have a distillery. They buy from MGP their own mix from MGP. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But a lot of smaller distillers who are starting up now, a couple down in Texas who are getting a name, one up in New York that I know of, they're having their mash bill made by MGP while they build their distilleries and their warehouses.
Okay.
So there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, it's not going to change when they're making it themselves, technically, but it's not made by them yet.
Okay. Now, with
I did hear that about Bullet.
Yeah, with the Starlight, it is Indiana, but whereas this is another rye I have. It's called Recovery Rye. You can see the label similar to the state of Indiana. It is made for Indiana. It is distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, but it is bottled by a Backbone Bourbon Company in Bardstown, Kentucky. This rye was made by a local radio personality, and every bottle that's sold, $5 goes to help. Is donated to bartenders, servers, cooks, and other hospitality workers in Indiana. So it's an Indiana product done.
You got Backbone Bourbon as well? That's what I have here too.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is done by Backbone, even though it's Recovery Rye. And this rye was aged 27 months, and it's actually. I'm not even going to bother trying to show you guys because it's too small, but it's actually handwritten on the back of the bottle, 27 months that it's aged. So, and
aged, is that from the barrel date? Because I've got the barrel date and the bottle date on this thing.
Yeah, this only says Recovery Rye is that love and passion, an exceptionally smooth rye with Midwest sublime sweetness that was homegrown and distilled in Indiana, aged 27 months. So that's all it says. So I'm assuming that is the barrel age, but someone else might correct me on that because obviously there are certain people on this panel that are far more experts on bourbon, rye, and whiskeys than myself. I just know that I tend to enjoy them, especially the bourbons. So, although I seem to be in good company, although all of you are down south, not up north with I am.
Well, one thing
I'm further up north than you are.
Me.
One thing I wanted to throw in there real quick about those top shelf and higher end bourbons is. I would experience some of them first because I don't typically drink the top shelf stuff, but I do try to keep like a bottle of something like Booker's around, which my last bottle of Booker's I paid almost $100 for, which sounds like a lot. And I had never had that before, and it's uncut and unfiltered. But it was probably one of the smoothest, best tasting bourbons I'd ever had ever.
Okay.
You know, I've never had coffee. I've never had that, but there are times. I think when it comes to bourbon, a lot of times you do get what you pay for, and I think there's a lot of price there's a lot of price variation and quality variance that go on in like the $30 to $60 range. Once you get in that upper level, I can't speak for all of it because I'm not an expert and I haven't sampled a whole lot of it. But what I have had at like the $100 level, it's kind of a crazy difference in some ways. It not necessarily better, but there are things about it that are definitely smoother and more flavorful, I think, than some of the others. So I think it really depends on what you're drinking.
Plus, I mean, a lot of that.
And that actually gets to a point that I
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hang on a second.
Oh,
Hang on a second. Jess was talking. Then we'll switch over to bacon.
Well, like if you're into the Bookers, the Basil Haydens, Blantons, those can peak out at 135 proof too. So I mean that's part of the experience as well. I mean, you're adding little drops of water or just a real thin piece of ice just to bring out the aroma and the extra flavor of that stuff. And it's incomparable to the 80 proof stuff that you're drinking normally. I had a 15-year
100%.
bottle of Pappy that was 135 proof.
Yeah.
I mean, and now on the secondary market, I couldn't get that bottle again for $1,500.
Right.
But it is something that you have once, or in my case, I really nursed that damn thing because getting it was a pain in the ass to begin with, and then everybody wants to chisel some from you whenever they're at your house. So it's like, yeah, you can have a few thimbles full of it and get the hell out of my kitchen.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. But yeah, that specialty beam, line there, all of those are really solid bourbons. I mean, I recommend all of them.
Yeah, Jim Beam makes Bookers, and when I first had it, I bought it right as the lockdowns were starting. So I just went to all of our liquor stores in town that were already putting quotas on people. So I was just buying
them all up.
I was buying what I could at each. We have 3, so I was buying what I could at each state store, and they had one bottle of Bookers left, and I thought, you know what, if this is the zombie apocalypse, and I'm going to go out drinking some good shit, so I bought a bottle of that, and honestly, I had to force myself to stop drinking it the first time I poured a glass because it was. It was that elevated of an experience, and
I would get Baker's next. If you like Bookers, get Baker's next.
Well, we don't have it now because all the premium shit is getting bought up by people with connections. So we haven't had a bottle of even Blanton's on the shelf for a year. So I mean, it's hard to get anything that's really top shelf down here, and I'm not connected enough. But as soon as I am. I'm going to buy some of that shit because it's like it's not an everyday drinker, but it's definitely a special occasion bottle for sure.
Are you guys drinking straight or are you drinking on the rocks?
I always drink it neat. I don't even bother with a drop of water or some ice. I just usually drink it neat unless I'm drinking really cheap stuff. If I drink like the bottom shelf Evan Williams, which I have a lot of that, I'll usually throw some ice in that just to cut it a little bit, but I almost always drink it just right out of the bottle. Yeah, I mean, in a glass, but not mixed.
If it's over 125 proof or so, I'll probably throw just maybe just a sliver of an ice cube or an eyedropper of water in it, and that's it. Otherwise, neat all the way.
Okay.
There's no shame in that.
Big glass and a lot of time is all I need at that point.
Gotcha.
All right.
Fair.
So, I want to divert the topic here real quick because I have some interesting things here now that I got the space here. So we forgot the most American thing that I can think of right now, the cocktail. Just in general. Am I right?
Well,
Yeah,
we touched on that
basically,
very briefly.
We had to
Yeah.
mix all of our rot gut shit that we were making in our bathtubs with fruit and other flavors in order to choke it down. I mean, that
And
really
that-
is the
Yeah.
that is the source and original purpose
Yeah.
of the cocktail. So,
That was very big in the Roaring '20s. Sugary drinks.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing. I watched a little video, so I kind of want to get this stuff out of my mind. But there's a big American history of the cocktail. So it starts from the punch bowl, which is, like your post-revolutionary times where a lot of the stuff, the whole punch thing with the upper class was starting to get like into the main public, where you'd use like a basic, like alcohol, and you'd mix it in with fruits and stuff, right? And that was pre-1806. I'm looking off something right now. But then you had the golden age that lasted from 1806 to the 1910s. Now, to me, a lot of people focus on the Prohibition, but here's the neat thing that I learned anyway is the pre-Prohibition, the reason it's called the golden age is because the Prohibition tried to make what happened in the pre-Prohibition, they tried to make that happen, but in a very crappy way. And the funny thing is, if the Prohibition had never happened, we would have, to me, a lot more like higher quality drinks, which is funny because, like you said, the Prohibition was just trying to mix rot gut, but before they were trying a little bit better because back before then, the way I understand it is there was a very big hotel like bar industry where there were, like in the big hotels in like New York or LA, they would have, these high class hotels where they would have like 10 people like on staff at these bars ready to mix you a cocktail.
well, I mean, if we ever do have the meetup in New Orleans, there are more classic cocktails that were invented in those hotels in the French Quarter than you can shake a stick at. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
I got the Sazerac and about 15 others just from the Carousel Bar at the Montleone, right on Pearl Street. So
I know how this is going to sound. It sounds like I ought to be wearing a red ball cap and putting on, Manosphere events in Central Florida.
I beat you to it.
Oh boy.
So I recognize that from the beginning. But I divide drinks into chick drinks and the dude drinks, man drinks. And to me, if it's sweet, if it's got a lot of mixes in it and all that other kind of stuff, that's mainly to make it palatable to chicks, so that you can get in their pants. And I'm not shitting on that. Because I drink those drinks too. Sometimes I'm usually with a chick when I'm doing it, but the classic old school standard of, a proper drink has 3 ingredients, and that includes the ice in the glass, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of where I come from, and I didn't always think that. That's only as I've gotten older and I've started drinking, I got to where I just started drinking mainly, bourbon straight.
Right.
And, but I still like a gin and tonic. I'll still drink a margarita, I'll still drink, a Moscow Mule and shit like that sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But usually.
Yeah, there you go.
But see, here's the thing. And this is something we haven't really gotten into tonight and may require a second show. But as I've gotten older and, I drink to enjoy myself, not so much to have some sort of physiological effect on myself. So I buy better stuff and I drink less of it over a longer period of time. And I think that makes a lot of difference too, because I think that a lot of the, hunch punch that we all drank when we were 18, there's a market for that. But when you get to be, 50, and you can afford a good bottle of bourbon and just sip it slowly and enjoy it, I think there's very much a sort of a demographic and behavioral aspect to all this as well. And again, I'm not shitting on anybody for drinking mixed drinks. It's just there's I've always associated that, rightly or wrongly, with there's always got to be something out there that appeals to women or maybe people who don't drink anything but beer. And I think it's an economic thing.
Or they're mixed in the cheaper stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't see a Manhattan or an old fashioned as being a chick drink, because those are still
they're very boozy.
I think that people have to keep in mind is that mixed drinks were the result of Prohibition, where a lot of these alcohols were just not good quality. They were bathtub gin. They were kind of what we consider to be they were not good quality, and so you had to deal with that by mixing together a bunch of drinks. Whereas now you can drink really top shelf good quality stuff neat or on ice, but you don't have to mix it with anything. And there's a lot of types of whiskeys, like for example this right here, this stuff, I would never mix that with anything else. There's a bunch of other types of whiskeys and bourbons I would never mix with anything, because it's such good quality that to put it together with something else. There's certain types of rum, for example, I would never mix with a Coke or any other type of like ginger ale, because they're such good quality. They on their own, they're so smooth.
They stand alone.
They stand alone. So I think that the mixed drink stuff is, in some ways, it's kind of a carryover of that stuff. Like nobody's gonna pull out a top shelf rum and serve that as a Coke and rum. They're gonna at a local tavern or bar or something like that.
Yeah,
they're
if
gonna
you're ordering rum and Coke or a pina colada with your Royal Cola. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So there is an art style to it, though, and that's really what people do. And you can price up the value of a cocktail, and
exactly,
and translate sometimes. Like a really good example is like the tiki drinks that I was looking into. Like a lot of them will require like your very Barbados, dark, straight from Jamaica kind of rums that are all pretty high dollar. If you want to go like top shelf with your, and it does make a difference in the mix. You can really taste those like dark rum notes along with everything else. There is an art style to the taste. There's an art style to the mix. And, there's also a chemistry mix thing. So, some drinks are dependent. Like a lot of these now are, a lot of cocktails I see now are more based on like chemistry and augmenting what's already there. So they're using a lot of like 3-tier mixes. And,
well, there's a big difference between a zombie and an old fashioned.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between, a screwdriver and a daiquiri. It just a screwdriver, daiquiri, pina colada, a margarita,
especially a Hemingway daiquiri.
Yeah. There's also some drinks. It's like it's all about the occasion. Like on some nights, an old fashioned is appropriate if you're with a bunch of other guys and you're hanging out, having smokes and just chewing the fat.
Contextual and mood.
Yeah,
hanging out with you guys, drinking an old fashioned, smoking a cigar, and talking about crap. Yeah, that seems totally appropriate.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, there's some of us. It's like some foo-foo drinks are appropriate for certain occasions.
You can say Aaron, and you can say the umbrella in his.
Well, Aaron,
I was gonna say Terrence Pop, because I know Terrence Pop is he's kind of that's his weak spot. That's his Achilles heel.
Drink.
He's into the foo things. And when I was initially, drinking liquor, that was kind of my thing. And then I got, developed my palate a little bit.
Then you woke up.
Yeah. Well, there's some things. It's like it's a fun drink. It's like you're not there to I'm not there to have like an intellectual discussion with anybody. We're just sitting back. We're like having a barbecue. We're smoking pork or salmon in the smoker. Exactly.
Yeah, see that's it right there. That's it right there, because I like mixed drinks. Like if I'm someplace in the middle of the day getting a sandwich, especially if I'm on vacation, then I'll get it like a Manhattan and some kind of sandwich or something with it, and that's far more enjoyable with the meal than just drinking some straight bourbon right there.
Right.
And I think that and whether it's a margarita or any of that other shit, it usually to me To me, it pairs better with food.
Any of that other shit.
But
I
I'm gonna tell you, and I
Don't
know
hold
it-
back, Nick. Tell us how you really
I
feel.
just heard that in Foghorn Leghorn's voice.
I said it, boy. I can ditch it too.
Yeah,
boy.
Keep dropping
Any
it.
of that other shit.
Look, I know it's all bullshit, but if I run across you at 5 PM and you're just sitting at a table drinking a pina colada and that's it,
You're gonna beat your ass.
I ain't drinking with you.
Do me a favor and beat me with the Billy Club, please.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you're drinking an apple teeny by yourself,
You deserve to be by
Your
yourself.
finger out.
Yeah, you deserve to
I'm
be
eating a
beat out.
salad with a pink squirrel in front of me.
I'm guessing you guys stood up
Squirrel.
if that's the case, you know.
Yeah, right.
For me, like
Seriously,
that's
Sitting by
you deserve
yourself
to be
drinking
stood
a
up.
Cosmopolitan.
If I see you drinking a sex on the beach, I'm gonna let the air out of your tires.
Right?
And see, Nick, here's the thing. Like, you get into that kind of stuff. To me, that's kind of like the revival. That was the next part. Those are like the revival cocktail.
Amen, Reverend.
Doctor.
Preach
And
it,
that
preach it.
really, appealed to like the women, like the Sex in the City woke.
Oh, that
women.
bullshit.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
There are two different
And-
things. You had Sex in the City with the whole apple teenies and all that kind of crap for the girls, and then you had Mad
Jesus.
Men with the old fashions, and the Manhattans, and things like
Yeah.
that for us.
Yeah.
I mean, and as cocktails go, those are two totally different drinks.
It's total opposite end of the spectrum.
Well,
Yeah.
also, I
I'm not
grew
getting
up in
together
the
with you
I
guys to
noticed
drink
that the
apple
men's,
teenies.
those tend to be whiskey or bourbon based.
And when we meet up, we're gonna
vodka.
exactly. We're gonna order an apple teeny for Robert when we meet up.
You also got to understand that I grew up in the South and we couldn't afford anything but the whiskey itself. So all that other shit, we just didn't. We couldn't afford. So
I say all that other shit, boy.
I say all that other shit. Nothing but whiskey and Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah, the conversation reminds me that I don't know if any of you have ever eaten at Oscar's at the Plaza in Vegas. It's a really old steakhouse. I think they're celebrating their 50th year this year.
I've heard of it, but I've never been there yet.
Yeah. Well, it's named after a former mob boss / mayor of of Vegas, and one of their cocktails there is it's just called Oscar's Choice. 5 ounces of Bombay Sapphire with half of a jalapeno pepper in it. Now, see, that's a cocktail that I can get behind right there.
there you go.
Nice.
So much
You know
like
what? You actually bring up. This is actually a hobby that I picked up. After everything had started shutting down. Do any of you guys have any experience with infusing liquors?
Yes. Yeah. With
I figured Chess would.
yeah, I mean anything from chrysanthemum flowers all the way to vanilla pods. So yeah.
Nice vanilla. I
So-
gotta add that on the list.
Yeah,
I'm actually getting back into that now.
Do you make your own limoncello as a starter?
Only know limoncello. I got into that the same way that I got into drinking and cigars and women, all the other things. Just
Drinking cigars.
cold feet, a lot of noise.
Why are you drinking? Why are you drinking cigars?
Why are
I
you
drank a
drinking
cigar.
women?
Hey, don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. here.
I understand.
Anyways, well, that was
That's
the other thing
right,
I was
Nick.
going to bring up earlier.
Amen, brother.
One of the best ways to learn about things, whether it's wine or wine, beer, spirits, other things that are intoxicating. It's get experience. But as far as infusing, that's just something I just kind of picked up. Hey, first thing I did was what was it? I got a couple bottles of tequila, one silver, one reposado. And I made like 5 pounds of jalapenos that I pickled myself. Use some of those along with pineapple to and just let it sit for like a week. Then when it had filtered it, or you just got the stuff out and bottled it, that's something that I picked up that I've enjoyed. The latest one
sounds pretty good. That sounds good.
It is.
Yeah, I like habanero and mango too, are two that go really well.
I did that as well.
Yeah, it's fruit on fruit, but it also adds a lot of heat.
Yeah, that's a real hot one. Maybe I shouldn't have let that one sit for a week or added too much habanero or whatever. One I'm working on now, this is our request of that chick that I was telling Vince about. She suggested gin, and I thought I was gonna regret this, but when was it? Now I'm on my second bottle. The first one, it was her suggestion was watermelon, ginger, and lemon. And I had to buy a second bottle and use one of my half-gallon mason jars because I forgot how much volume watermelon takes. But that actually came out really smooth. When I'm planning for, I got another bottle of ginger because now I'm curious. I wanted to do my own take on it. And that one, I wanted to use, was it hibiscus, cinnamon, and maybe a little bit of black pepper just for fun. But that's something that's a hobby that I had picked up. I was wondering if anybody else had the experience, with that or drinking or whatever.
Yeah, you should try a limoncello next. Get something really high proof, even because then you can cut it. So like you take a dozen lemons and you just peel all of the rind off it, but you leave the white, the pith, so you just get the oils from the skin. You soak that in Everclear or whatever high, very neutral alcohol, high proof, very neutral alcohol for about a week until all of those oils are pulled from the skin, and you just filter it off, and then from there. You add water to it to get it to your proper proof, sweeten it lightly, and then squeeze a couple halves of lemon into that just to brighten up the flavor a little bit, and then bottle it. And you get this bright yellow, slightly cloudy lemon liqueur that's just really nice to drink.
Amazing.
Really good for before dinner.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd have to use something.
Sounds
like
interesting.
vodka or gin or something to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can cut it with gin or maybe with tonic water. I think when I had it cut with tonic water, but.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that when you're making it, you have to go as high proof as you can tolerate before you cut it with something else, or you bring it down to proof by adding distilled water. Because those oils are volatile and they're best taken from the skin with the more alcohol you have. That's more soluble, the higher the alcohol percentage is. So it helps you make it faster, and it also gives you a fresher product because the oils don't take as long then to leach into whatever it is you're soaking them in.
All right. What would you use to
hang on? Who's talking here?
I was supposed to ask what you use
to sweeten it. My best thing, because it's easy to control, is making my own simple syrup. So if you know that your water amount added to what you have will produce a certain proof once you've mixed in the water, you might as well mix in your sugar at the same time. So if you go like 1-to-1 ratio of water to sugar by weight, and you dissolve that sugar in, you end up with a clear syrup that will drop your proof, and it'll also sweeten your beverage at the same time. So that's what I prefer to do, because that way there you don't have to worry about things coming out of solution or precipitating out because they don't mix properly.
Right. Okay. Just curious.
So
sorry, somebody else was asking a question or something.
I just want to know if Chest will adopt me and teach me all he knows.
Young grasshopper.
So hold on.
He's going to make you drink a cosmopolitan first.
That's right.
So this concept that you're using for limoncello, is that a very like inheritable concept for most of your like fruit-based liqueurs that are using to? Or
well, yes and no. Depending on
it's
what
slightly different, but
well, if you're trying to reproduce something else out there, like you're thinking of maybe like a Cointreau or a Grand Marnier with orange, it's not the same because that's a completely different type of liquor product that's distilled and then those flavors are added back in. But you could make an orangello or a blood orange liqueur doing the same exact technique. It's just that most of the flavor in any citrus fruit is drawn from the skin. It's not really from the fruit itself. The juice that you use is just to brighten up the flavor and to add acidity to it, so it isn't all one note. So like you could do it with limes, blood oranges, regular oranges. I really like Meyer lemons for limoncello because they're naturally a little bit sweeter to begin with. Sometimes they're hard to get. I've also made cucumber infused vodka, which is good. I don't know if anybody's had that before.
Yeah, the cucumber gives it an interesting bite. That's the way I would describe it. Am I right?
Yeah. That's another one. I don't like to use mint in a lot of things, even though some people do, because if it gets bruised, it gives a very bitter aftertaste to everything. Got to be careful. Well, that's like people who try to make what the hell are they? The shitty drink that they give you at the Kentucky Derby.
Mint juleps.
Yeah, mint juleps.
Yeah.
When they muddle the mint, basically you beat it up with a miniature billy club in the bottom.
It's like a shitty mojito.
Yeah, pretty much.
And,
it's a good way to ruin bourbon is to make a. Yeah, exactly.
Who puts mint in bourbon?
Kentuckians do when they want to bring out women in big hats.
When they want to win horse races.
Julep. That's what goes in a julep.
Mint julep, see? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there are some things that work good as a ingredient in the immediacy of mixing something, but if you want to make a beverage out of it, it just doesn't work. And people also like to boil things too, and that completely kills the flavor of stuff. Don't ever use a recipe where you're bringing things to a boil.
Well, you don't boil
alcohol, and you don't boil meat.
Yeah, because I mean, cooking alcohol into meat, you boil all the alcohol content out of the booze that you put into the meat, right? That's the whole thing with like cooking. A good example around here is something that's popular is boiling meat with like a simple lager and making like a very simple sloppy Joe out of it, right? And that kills all the alcohol content, but you still get the taste.
Yeah,
it'll depend on how long you do it.
We're talking boiling meat, not like sous vide.
No, like have you ever had a beer brat before? I mean, you're from the Midwest, you know what a beer brat is. I mean, that's basically
I've had beer brats are amazing.
You're taking you're taking a natural casing sausage and boiling it in beer, and because of that semi-permeable membrane around that meat, all that beer flavor gets right into the center of that sausage.
It's amazing.
So
I've done it. I've done it where I've taken bratwurst and beer, or I've done beer bratwurst where it's been soaked previously in beer. That stuff's amazing. So you just gotta do it right. But
I mean, old Amos would know a little bit about that. That's part of his blood, right? The old Polish sausage dairy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even worry too much about just losing the alcohol content. I mean, it really depends on how long you cook it. It's still got to take the time to a boil. It's not going to immediately evaporate unless you know, like I'm mistaken. But even with that, you know, like if you, like with the beer broth thing, for example, I mean, you're not necessarily looking to get, you know, hammered off of eating sausages. I mean, it's for the flavor, for the most part, you know. Not that that's a bad thing or anything. Just saying, you know.
Yeah, getting hammered eating sausages.
I knew a chick in college who got hammered off eating sausages.
Yeah. We all have, or we knew the same girl. I'm not sure which, but yeah. Well, I mean, there's always that myth that, you know, the alcohol cooks, you know, completely out of something, and it doesn't completely cook out. I mean, you know,
right.
But what you're trying to get is the flavor more than the alcohol.
Yeah, it renders it kind of to a old, like non-alcoholic kind of level, right?
Well, even non-alcoholic beer has like 0.01% alcohol or something.
It has more, but yeah. Basically, a kid could eat the, you know, beer boiled sausage and be okay.
Your cough syrup has more alcohol in it.
Yeah.
All right, exactly.
So I guess that's an interesting topic. What do you guys think about non-alcoholic beer? And the point of it?
I've drunk it, and my thought is, you know, if you're gonna do that stuff, you might as well just buy Coors Light or Bud Light or some sort of light beer, because
piss beer.
No, my thought is like,
here's a controversial statement. Caliber is actually better tasting than Heineken, and I'll go to my grave saying that, because Heineken sucks ass. It is terrible beer.
So the point I'm just saying is, like, you know, for some of these beers, if you're gonna drink it for like health reasons or not to, you know, you don't want to drink, you know, get buzzed or whatever, like, you might as well just drink a couple of. You might as well just stick with light beer, because it's going to do the same thing, unless you happen to be a lightweight, which I'm not. So
here's an interesting thing that I thought of, TJ. Now, I've seen this sold in certain stores where people are of the Islamic religion, where they have to follow halal. They can bypass halal and drink non-alcoholic beer.
It's not beer.
Of course.
I don't see the point of that.
You might as well fucking drink iced tea.
Yeah.
It's like masturbating with a condom on. It's like kind of what's the point?
Right. It's like my whole thought, like on like the non-alcoholic beers, is
be
like,
safe.
Yeah, well, no, it's like if you're gonna go to a restaurant or whatever, just order it. You don't want to get drunk, or you don't want to get buzzed. You just don't want to drink. Just order a light beer. Order a Bud Light or a Coors Light.
Nick,
well, there's a laugh I haven't heard out of Vince.
That's because I'm drinking wine.
Oh my God.
A lot of it. What?
And Vino Veritas.
And Vino Veritas. That's right. I have a varied range of laughs, and as you get to know me, you'll get the different laugh ranges. So settle down. Don't get nuts, Amos.
Sounds like a white girl.
Get the Burt Reynolds pretty soon. There you go.
Well, anyways, the answer to the question is, like, you might as well just buy light beer, unless there's some sort of, like, you know, objection to that kind of stuff, because it's going to taste the same, and also, like, if you really like the taste of beer that much, just once you go with beer, you're never going to go back. So if you don't want to drink or have alcohol, don't drink beer at all. Just go drink something else, like drink a
Tab.
Drink a diet, like a diet ginger beer or something.
Okay, here's an urban myth that I want to either dispel or see if I get any traction with one direction or another. Is there a proper also safer direction in which you can drink various beverages. If you don't understand what I mean, there's always been the adage, beer before liquor, never been sicker.
Sicker, yeah.
Or, liquor before beer, you're in the clear. Is there a high alcohol to low alcohol edict, or can you hop around in there and not suffer, as the old sayings go?
I would think it's a matter of quantity.
I think it's all a question of quality.
Yep.
Yeah, and the also
depends.
it's about the.
I didn't want a nuanced answer for this. What? Come on. Okay, go ahead. It's
about the quality of like both. Like if you're drinking good quality beer and you're drinking good quality liquor and you're not drinking way too much of it, then that's one thing. But if you're drinking like bottom
you're
shelf,
bouncing around on bottom shelf bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah, you're on bottom shelf on both sides. I don't think it really matters.
Well,
if you're doing rich and rare with ginger ales, and then you're drinking like, I guess that Bud
TJ
Light
and his dark and stormies.
What's the dark and stormy?
You mentioned ginger beer.
Oh, like no. I don't
ginger
drink
beer and dark rum. I think.
Yep,
no.
pretty much.
There's a reason. No, rich and rare is bad. Don't ever.
I'm
drink
ashamed that I know that.
We all are.
Oh my!
Oh God!
I'm ashamed.
That is fine.
Yeah.
If you're drinking bad stuff combined, it doesn't matter what chaser you use.
Well, the thing is,
I could throw in two things as far as that goes. As someone with, let's just say, more than the average person's share of experience, one, that as far as that beer or liquor saying goes, that could be true up to a point. Are you good at gauging how much you drink at the time? With beer, that's going to be easier because that's going to obviously take more time than taking shots or whatever. So you may get in over your head as far as that. That's number one. Number two, I'm glad TJ brought this up because I hear this particularly with tequila in particular. First question I always ask every time somebody says they had a bad experience with tequila, I ask them, was it 100% agave? And almost every single time, like if they're drinking salsa or just regular Jose Cuervo, like the gold stuff, and they just add in God knows whatever to give it this color. Like, no, you actually need to drink the real stuff. The real stuff is 100% agave. So quality, like TJ said, matters too. Number three, a major part of hangovers, in my personal theory, this is where some of the health effects associated with alcohol comes from, is the sugar content in whatever you're drinking. Now, I don't know too much about how it works as far as rum goes, because I know rum has a pretty high sugar content. Matter of fact, I actually need to look back into that.
It's distilled sugar. It's literally rendered like it's all sugar, from what I know.
Right.
But there have been floods through the streets of Boston from rum in the past.
All right, but to finish my little diatribe there, sugar is going to be a major cause of. So like, if you're like Nick or Chester, Robert, or anybody, and you're just drinking bourbon, you're probably going to be okay, especially if you're drinking quality stuff. But if you're drinking like a whole bunch of mixed drinks, and maybe throwing in beer, something in there like that, that's, from my experience, that's what's going to leave you end up hurting, both in the next morning and down the line later on during the years. So take that for what you will.
Well, I still say it goes kind of to quantity as well. I was on a flight to go to a concert down in Dallas, and I had a couple of Bloody Marys or something, or maybe a rum and Coke, something like that. when I first got on the plane because, you know, I'd just been sexually molested by TSA to even get on the aircraft. So I needed something. So, you know, I probably had a couple Bloody Marys or rum and cokes. And then it was a night flight, so I had dinner. I was in first class because a lady friend of mine was flying me to the concert, and you know, if a woman's flying me somewhere, she flies me first class, or I don't come. Literally. Anyway, so for dinner, I had a glass of wine, and after dinner, I had a liqueur afterwards, a Bailey's, and you know, so I mean, no big deal. I had 3 different things, and you know, but it was just quantity with my food and with the flight, and it made being molested by TSA a little bit more bearable, and then the flight down to Dallas from Indianapolis a little bit more pleasant. But so I mean, it depends on what you mix. It depends on how much of it you mix. It's like anything else. When you overindulge, you run certain risk. You know, too much of anything can be bad. Too many ex-wives can be bad for the wallet. You know,
yeah, you dumbasses.
Yeah,
I'm still that theory of too much as far as liquor goes. But okay,
yeah.
Should I confess
that was my point.
Yeah. So, but I mean, obviously, if you're drinking decent stuff, you're drinking it in moderation, and you're drinking it over a reasonable amount of time, you know, you should be fine. But it's like anything else. You just got to behave like an adult and know what you can manage and what you can't. And it's not that big of a deal. But, you know, that requires an element of personal responsibility. And that's, you know, verboten anymore. You know, it's always somebody else.
Well, yeah, I mean, that gets back to my point, and I guess, you know, the answer. There's a difference between, like, you know, what you say, you're having a glass or 2 of wine, you know, or 2 with dinner, or, you know, or you're drinking bourbon along with the cigars, you know, shooting the shit with the guys. It's a whole other thing if you're shotgunning 4 Locos, you know, by the can.
Oh yeah,
you know, you're gonna get in a lot more trouble with the latter. You know, I asked some teenagers, you know, who may not have passed away, you know, all those years ago, how they found out.
Mm-hmm. You know, with the old Fort Locos, with caffeine.
Oh, you never heard about that?
Yeah, that was some pretty dangerous times when they were injecting caffeine into alcohol. There's a reason why they put a ban on that shit.
Not really. I mean,
you know, it's funny enough. I still remember when they actually did that, and hey, you know, just going back to the old, you know, party days. You know, go on party rides and stuff like that. I mean, so, you know, being a broke kid, you know, like barely working a job if I had one to begin with, you know, that's real bang for your buck. I think the only reason I didn't escape with, you know, like major problems drinking a whole bunch of those because I was literally working off the calories as I was drinking them. So, but yeah, I still remember, you know, when that happened, I figured out my own way of actually replicating what the old Four Loko formula was like. Yeah, just for fun. I don't recommend anybody here in the panel or listening in the chat does that. You know, I'm just saying it's something that I did.
Yeah, caffeine and alcohol. That's always a great idea. What was it? Vodka Red Bull. That's another one.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Or Jaeger
Red Bull.
Jaeger bombs.
Jaeger bombs. Yeah.
The white girl drink.
I must confess a sin. 2016, I in a rough time of my life, someone gave me a bottle of UV cake. It's just
I'm
vodka
familiar with UV. Yeah,
it's a sweetened vodka, and I mixed it with Mountain Dew.
Whoa!
I drank a 32-ounce glass of half of that and half of Mountain Dew on an empty stomach. Yeah, that was like a 2 or 3 day
hangover. What was the hilarity that ensued from that?
Oh, I was all alone. That's the rough patch in my life phase. You know, you go for it. Like
it must just be a generation difference or an age difference or something. Because I mean, Nick, back me up on this. I mean, when you were in high school, or whenever you first started to imbibe alcohol, I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, one, Red Bull wasn't even around, but I mean, the whole idea of alcohol and caffeine and those kind of things. I mean, it was either beer or whatever bottle of something you got out of Dad's liquor cabinet. I mean, am I right, or are we looking at kind of a generation difference between us and Amos and Bacon here?
No, you're right. For us, it was either whatever beer we could scrounge. Sometimes it was, Kool-Aid and PGA or Kool-Aid and vodka or something like that, or it was some of those shitty drinks.
Do that too.
We would buy that shitty drinks like Boone's Farm or Champagne because we only had so much money and we had to get something that the girls would drink too. So we had to drink it.
Yeah.
Or Little Kings. Wasn't that a big thing with your guys' generation? Or is that older?
No, I remember Little Kings. I remember drinking Little Kings and smoking Camel non-filters out of in a garage at a buddy's house. So yeah.
No. So when I hear anybody that's like 40 plus talk about like the old days back in high school, it's always like a pack of Little Kings and either going on shift at work somewhere or like freaking out, going out and partying.
Hey, listening to Deep Purple in a buddy's garage, drinking his dad's Little King and smoking non-filtered Camels. Yep. Yeah.
That sounds so much like the stories I hear around here from my parents and relatives.
Dazed and confused, other than the whole hazing going from one high school to another was a little bit different. And that was, I guess, unique to down there. But yeah, a lot of the stuff in Dazed and Confused is very much how the 70s was. And I was a young guy in the 70s. So I was born in the late 60s. So I think Rolo and I are both about the same age, around 52. So
yeah,
Nick, you're right around there too, right?
Yeah, I'm 54 and I started my career, drinking and doing shit I wasn't supposed to do in the very late 70s. And in my state, Alabama, at that time, we had just like a year before I turned, probably a couple of years before I was going to turn 19, they raised the drinking age from 19 to 21. So the effect that had on all of us was like, well, fuck it. If we have to wait that long, we're just gonna drink now. And there were a lot of stores out there that would still sell you alcohol without an ID back in that day. Now that changed pretty quickly, but there was about a year and a half where if you looked old enough and there was enough, I guess, plausible deniability, on the part of the guy working at the convenience store, we could go into stores and still buy beer and shit. As long as we didn't make a spectacle and as long as we kept it cool and quiet, there was about a year there we could still buy it. So, but it was still, it was like that. It was still just beer and that kind of shit.
Oh, I remember my dad sending me into.
When did that happen? Like, I guess give me a
various years in the 70s based on different states. So, I mean,
for us, it was around 81 or 82.
Yeah. So starting sometime between like 78 and 80, various states started changing. Because because there was a while there that the drinking age in Ohio was still 18 or 19. And the drinking age in Indiana was like 21. So you would go from Indiana to Ohio to buy liquor.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was a pretty common thing in the late 70s, early 80s. But of course, in the mid to late 80s, you could still have your parents send you into the drugstore to buy a pack of cigarettes. So you could be a 5-year-old and lay down your $1 and, buy your pack of cigarettes and get your 20 cents back and go hop in mom or dad's car and, hand them their pack of smoke. So, but, it was a different world back then.
And middle-aged white women were getting all up in arms about losing their precious children in car accidents after problems.
The mad
Oh, Jesus.
You know what happened with us was that, you know, I had a friend that moved to Alabama from Louisiana. Now in Louisiana back then, when I was in high school, they could get a driver's license at 15, which meant they could be out on their own driving. And so and their drinking age was raised much later than ours. Their drinking age wasn't raised to 21 until 86, which is after I was even out of high school. So he moved to Alabama, and his parents would let him drive, and his parents would let him drink. And because, I mean, I was married to somebody from Louisiana. That's just a thing in Louisiana. Everybody drinks, especially if they're Catholic and they're from South Louisiana. And,
that's me how I know. I know how Louisiana is.
And so we had all kinds of, everything was just a whole lot looser back then, and the cops were really like, hey, if you're not out causing trouble, and you're not obviously drunk and driving dangerously, if we catch you somewhere drinking, we're just going to make you pour it out and go home. We're not going to fuck with you. And that's the way it was back then. You know, it was very easy to get out of trouble as long as you were being cool about it.
Yeah. I have several stories from back then, but they don't necessarily tie in with the topic of tonight's show. So I'll save them for some other time. But yeah, I miss living in that America. That was a great time, man. It was a really great time because you could, you know, there was none of that whole idea about, you know, zero tolerance policies and all that shit. It didn't exist, at least not where I lived. And it was just all based on usually how big of a ruckus you were causing. And if you were keeping it cool, man, it was like, you know, everybody just knew you're going to drink anyway. We just don't want you to hurt yourself. And it was much more, you know, kind of reasonable and less of all that, you know, oh my God, we got to save you from yourself, you know, right now. Oh yeah. Well, the burnt hand remembers best. And, you know, some things you just kind of learn from experience, and, you know, things like that, especially dealing with alcohol. It's not like it was encouraged. It's not like it was tolerated completely. But I mean, there were certain, you know, kids were allowed to do stupid things and learn lessons from doing the stupid things. And based on your maturity level and how you behaved, usually kind of dictated the repercussions you faced, you know. And there was a lot, and I have to put it this way, you know, if you did something and you screwed the pooch, if you stood there and took it like a man, it was okay, and you got over it and you moved on and you learned something from it. But, you know, that whole that being allowed to be a young boy and try to learn, you know, what it is to be a man and to emulate, you know, masculine role models and things like that, you know, all that stuff is discouraged now and called toxic and everything else. And gee, you know, mothers against drunk driving. Gee, I seem to remember women having something to do with the whole reason we had to go through Prohibition, and what good things came out of Prohibition? Oh, a rise in organized crime, you know. So
it's like BADD, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yep.
Really?
So there's always a common thread.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's usually middle class, middle to upper class white women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like known as Karen.
It's like Patrice O'Neill said about women. It's your job to fuck up our good time.
Mm-hmm.
I was never a big D&D guy, but I had friends who were, and there was always, there were always some concerned moms or occasionally dads that would come to the school
Satanic panic
and talk about, you shouldn't be involved in Dungeons and Dragons because it was a satanic thing, and everybody else was pretty much like, that's like,
yeah.
There was only y'all are all off at
Satanic
parties
panic.
fucking each other.
Yeah, only one case went to federal court, and it was pretty much dismissed, thrown out. Like, no.
So Vince, next week we're summoning Satan, right?
We've been summoning Satan the entire time. Shut up.
But here,
exactly.
Here.
Nick is here. Nick is here.
Yeah, and who was it that had problems with Prince lyrics and Wasp lyrics and Twisted Sister lyrics and everything else? Who was it who just happened to be married to husbands that were senators? That Yeah. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, Tipper Gore couldn't even kiss her husband. Fuck that bitch.
Yeah, well,
Tipper Gore.
Religion and white women.
Guy, he took one for the team when he married that thing.
Yeah,
she looks like Prince Charles, for fuck's sake.
He was running for president, and he went in for a kiss, and it was like the most awkward, repulsive, like meeting of two people.
Well, they're both. He was probably homo, and she's a lesbian, and it was one of those beard things. And like, let's come together.
Oh, let's come together and make a face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a public.
That just sounds like the worst way to come together ever.
Well, pretty much. All right, everyone. We are coming up on the 3-hour and 15-minute mark.
Oh, jeez.
So,
I didn't see this going that long, but it's fitting that this is about drinking and stuff,
I know, right? Amos finally poured himself a drink.
Yes, he did.
Fantastic. Finish it.
Cheers, Amos.
Yes.
Everybody
raise your glass right now. This is a glass lifting.
I'm left-handed, so I'm like sitting here. I gotta right.
Oh, you're the devil that we conjured.
I'm blocking because I'm blocking the shot. So.
Oh yeah. So there you go.
Don't worry, Amos. I'm a southpaw too.
All right. So.
You dirty whore. All right, Luke. We'll catch you later. The night is young. Well, some of us have to work in the morning.
Yeah, come on.
All right.
Some of us work till the morning.
Exactly. So this has been fairly fantastic, and I want to thank you all for joining.
Oh, thanks for the invite.
Absolutely.
Same, man.
All of you, all you dirty bastards. Oh, you dirty mugs.
Some chicks are gonna be pissed off at me because I haven't gotten back to their text because they texted me while we're doing this.
She'll wait.
Bros before hoes, man.
Exactly. So let's go around and do some housekeeping. Red, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Light of Boulder, or you can find me on Twitter, Red Crusader 3. And I usually post some, nature pictures or some, interesting boozy stuff like I did tonight.
Cool. So, I would say find you on Twitter, but you haven't done shit with that in like months, so.
No,
even I've been
kind of a funnel for my Instagram. Tell you the truth.
Okay, gotcha. Robert, how about yourself?
Robert Kuzlin on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, usually posting Japanese stuff or stuff in Japanese because that's who I talk to mostly. I swear it's a tough gig, but someone's got to do it. And so you can follow me there. You can find me there. Plan on doing more content. I've got some video game stuff up on YouTube right now. Plan on doing some other stuff, but I want to kind of tie it in to some other things. And you'll also find me occasionally on stuff with the Masculine Geek, not least of which being D&D nights and occasional shows like this. So
yes. There will probably be another Masculine Geek D&D session next week when TJ and I are in Kansas City. So
awesome.
Yes. So Nick, how about your or Dick Cola? How about yourself? You dick, you dirty dick.
Truth in advertising, right?
Dick Cola. Fuck, that's going to be a name for laser dick.
That's a mixed drink I don't want to try.
Seriously. Nobody does.
You can't. Well, you don't want to find me. What you want to do is find Punch Riot magazine at punchriot.com, where you can find savage, unapologetic, non-politically correct fiction, poetry, all kinds of shit by people like Vince and TJ, occasionally Onophile Rockwell, and some others in this sphere. You can sometimes find me publishing shit at nickaugust.xyz.
There you go.
And I'm on Twitter.
He is on Twitter, and he's exactly. He's talking about grandmothers that are getting
everybody's grandmother undressed for sailors.
That's right, you dirty fuckers. And Onophile Rockwell Chest. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me shit posting on Twitter, modding
as always,
hilariously.
Modding the Married Red Pill subreddit, and if I see you in real life, you're in big trouble.
Well, we saw it in real life. We were in big trouble.
Yeah, I saw you in real life.
I was gonna say.
For the other times.
Exactly. Exactly. TJ, how about yourself? Where can we find you?
You can find me all at tjmartinell.com. Everything you'll need to find, anything you're interested in about that I'm working on, you can find there. You're smart people. You'll figure it out.
There you go. Bacon, yourself.
And buy this on Amazon.
Yes.
Yes,
Go buy
thank you.
The Song of Wolfgar.
Nice.
And Lee, and wait. Leave a goddamn review.
Yes.
Fuck. Put your money where your mouth is. Buy the fucking books and leave fucking reviews.
Amen, Reverend. Amen.
Exactly.
Even if you don't buy the book, still leave a good review.
Just leave a review. Buy the book and leave, just make some shit up. Yeah. And Bacon, how about yourself?
I'm in the middle of redoing the website, but still a lot of good content there. You can go to thegoddamnbacon.com. YouTube, I'm putting out content and just had a show I did today. Just type in The Goddamn Bacon. Instagram, The Goddamn Bacon, where you can see whatever the hell I'm posting about, along with the picture of some lady that's easier on the eyes than what you normally see in real life. And finally, I'm on my fifth on one hand, fifth account.
Jesus.
On Twitter. The name for it now is Who Is This Bacon 1. And whenever I figure out what I want to rename it, that won't get me flagged and deleted again, I'll let you know.
Fantastic.
Life goals.
Indeed. Let's see how many Instagram accounts you can get banned, and Twitter accounts. Jesus Christ.
And YouTube. This is the second YouTube account.
And your big brother. Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
And last, but
I'm
not
just going to
least,
enjoy my anonymous white privilege.
I know. That's right. Someone had said something about how if we can't see chest, how do we know he lifted his glass? He lifted his glass. We heard him. We heard the glass lift. All right. Amos.
Yes. You can find me on all of my first accounts that have not been banned.
You're obviously doing it wrong.
You can check me out on the 10K Run podcast or on Twitter at Amos Joe, where of course that account has not been banned. My Facebook has gotten a few warnings, but never any
no banning,
full on ban. No.
It pays to be white adjacent.
Facebook is only the beginning.
Yeah, I got a little bit of Asian cover my ass.
You've got you got sort of a southern white first name, so you're good, Amos. Absolutely, you do. Why? All right, cool. Everyone, let's see what this Wednesday coming up will probably be another D&D game. We'll see. Chances are it will. Anyway. So
nice.
Until then, I'll throw up an email thread to that regard. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone on the panel. This has been most educational and interesting and most fun drinking with you all.
Definitely.
Enjoy enjoy the rest of your weeks. Enjoy your weekends. Go, if you have not, sign up for the Masculine Geek newsletter. Make sure you do that. Drops every Monday. We do not spam you, just give you good content. TJ, you want to do the honors and take us out?
All right, folks.
Oh, come on. Nick, take us out.
Jesus.
Toodles.
Man, you dirty bastards.
It's more like it.